Tom, if you'd like to give the invocation.
Thank you. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the country that we live in, and we thank you for the freedoms that we enjoy. As we deliberate tonight, may the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in thy sight, our Lord, our Savior. Amen.
All right. Call the roll, please, clerk.
Okay, we have our Mayor J. Max Davis.
Here.
Councilmember Rebecca Chase Williams, District 1.
Present.
Councilmember Bates Madison, District 3.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Gebbia, District 4.
We ever going to go back to maybe reverse?
I will, next time,
Just
promise.
teasing. I'm here.
Okay, thank you.
Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Opening remarks. We have a new employee with the city. Susan Hyde, if you want to introduce our new employee.
Yes, I'm very pleased to introduce our new Deputy City Clerk, is Kathy Garland. Kathy has a lot of experience. She's actually been a executive director of 2 organizations, and she's recently married, and she's wanting to work here at near her home at the city of Brookhaven. And she also has served on many boards and associations and been in the leadership program for the county. So she's very qualified to hold this position, and I'm pleased to have her.
Thank you. How about a Brookhaven
Kathy.
welcome for our new new deputy clerk?
Stand up, Kathy. Stand up.
Thank you for coming. All right. Agenda announcements. Are there any agenda announcements?
No.
Okay. All right, public comment for agenda items only. Do we have any cards for public comment?
At this time, all of the comments are about the ordinance that's already on the agenda, unless there's somebody that did not turn in a card. I just got one. It's on the ordinance also, so if you want to wait and speak at the time of the tree ordinance.
Or you can speak whenever you'd like. If it's on the agenda, you can speak about it, tree ordinance or not, if it's on the agenda, right?
Yes.
Okay.
To read the
Well,
rules. We need to also read the opening statement.
Yes, Kathy's going to read the rules.
Okay. Don't be nervous, Kathy. It's your first. Mike.
Handouts and displays should be approved by the city clerk prior to the meeting. Prior to speaking, each speaker will complete a speaker card and present it to the clerk before the beginning of the public comment portion of the meeting. The public comments portion of the meeting will last 30 minutes, and speaker cards will be accepted on first-come, first-served basis. Each speaker will be allotted 3 minutes to speak and will identify themselves by name, address, and if applicable, their organization before beginning their presentation. In order to respect the time of each speaker and the rights of all citizens who wish to speak, neither the mayor nor any council member nor any City of Brookhaven staff shall cut a speaker's time by engaging in dialogue, answering questions, or responding to individual issues, concerns, or questions raised by the speaker. Only after all speakers have been heard and the public comments portion of the meeting has been closed will the mayor and council be able to address any concerns raised by speakers. Any member of the public who does not get an opportunity to speak will be allowed to speak first at a subsequent meeting, and the clerk will hold their speaker card until the date they choose to return.
Thank you, Kathy. Very well. Very well done. All right. Public comment again.
There's not any unless they want to do it now.
If anybody wants to speak at this section of public comment who's turned in the card, please step forward. All right, nobody does. We'll close that public comment. You, sir, do? Okay, we got one person.
You gotta do it auction style to get people excited. Go on once, go on.
All right.
It's yours.
I got it, but you can. You can mark it up with all your documents.
I'm sorry, that's not working. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Do exhibits need to be given to the clerk first?
Should be, I should review them before you.
Yeah, that's, she just read the rule to say you have to send, could you give her the exhibits, please?
exhibits. There you go.
Thank you. But we do not have, this machine is not working today.
That's fine.
so-
That's fine. I'm sure everybody's aware of pictures of trees being cut down and lots being generally decimated. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, council members. Right, sorry. Good evening. I know most people are probably a lot more au fait with the change in the ordinance than I am, so I'm not the best qualified to speak on the details of this. The reason I'm standing up today is because very close to me where I live, my name is Peter Jepson, by the way. My address is 3408 Inman Drive, just on the Silver Lake subdivision behind here. The reason I'm here is because I was shocked at the removal of trees from 3188 Saybrook, and that was back in June. What I saw there was, I think, maybe 20, 30 trees on the lot. Within 24 hours, they were all removed. No, it is not that one. There's another one on there. There's, basically, I think you may be aware of it. It's been replaced by two big mounds of dirt. I think the shocking thing for me was that everything was removed and two specimen trees were removed, one of 38 inches in diameter and one of 30 inches in diameter. My concern is that if they were removed under the current ordinance for DeKalb County, then how can the specimen trees be removed? How can an area like that be totally cleared of trees? Whether you use the term clear cutting or clearing or whatever the term is, I think to any reasonable person, you would expect that any lot that is covered in trees and then is almost totally removed of them is not acceptable to the community, not acceptable to the area at large. So really my question is this: how can, under the new ordinance, how can what provision is there to stop the variances being approved in face of public comment and concern about clear cutting, so that with the best will in the world and with the best ordinance in the world that's been crafted carefully by arborists and yourselves in the community, if it is as easy as a waving of a hand and a stroke of a pen to say we overrule this, we make exception for the ordinance, and all the trees can be removed, which leaves us in the same predicament of decimating the canopy and decimating the natural resources in the neighborhood. And that's my concern, if those vetoes are still allowed.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much.
Hey, could you come up for 1 second, please? Okay. Right up here. I'm going to show you something.
Can I ask a question to our legal team?
We're all here.
Okay. Could you help us understand sort of the principle of law that basically, I believe in all tree ordinances, allows a property owner to cut down trees within the building footprint of a home, that to do otherwise or to prohibit somebody from building on their lot would in fact be more or less a taking of their property. Is that correct?
That is correct, that a person has his property within the limitations of the governmental authority with regard to the use of that property and its ability to develop that property for residential use in that case. Then if we were prohibiting the removal of specimen trees within the building footprint, then yes, that would be considered a taking.
And it's my understanding that pretty much all tree ordinances, Atlanta and whatever included, allow the cutting down of trees within a building footprint.
That's right, that's
Okay.
right. And the building footprint itself is certainly subject to the zoning ordinance as it relates to the setback, as to the percentage of lot coverage. All of those items are taken into consideration such that, there's not a complete, that the lot itself is completely covered with the building footprint.
Right, so the best we can do is really ask that you keep whatever you can outside of that building footprint and then replace, replant, recompense for what you take down.
That's correct. And that's what this ordinance does.
And the ordinance that we have structured is asking that specimen trees be recompensed at a 1 inch to inch. So if you take down this 38-inch tree, you've got to plant 38 inches back. Now, we know that doesn't grow a 38-inch tree overnight. We understand that, but eventually you'll have quite a few trees. But that's the most we can do. Is that
That's
correct? Okay. I just wanted to make sure we all understood that, because there's certain legalities that guide us. We have to have ordinances that are legal and enforceable.
That's, yeah.
Mr. Gibson? These are your, want to enter them in the record, or do you want to take them back, or what did you want to do?
Actually, that one's not mine, so.
Oh, whoever this belongs
That's
to.
Laurentius.
I'll pick it up at the end. You presented them, sir, so you can make the decision if they go into the record.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, please submit it to the record.
Okay. Thank you.
Next, comment?
Everybody wants to speak on the tree ordinance at the time of the ordinance. That's what they say.
More to come.
All right. Close the public comment. The minutes of August 12th. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. I turned it off for a second. Minutes of the consent agenda, minutes of the August 12th, 2014 hearing, meeting at 7 p.m. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I move that we approve the minutes.
Second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor of approval of the minutes, signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. And the next one is consideration approval of the mid-year budget amendment or adjustment?
The adjustment.
Adjustment. It says amendment on the agenda here. We want to hear a little bit about that from Marie.
Yes.
Is it possible, Madam Clerk, for you to put this up on the board? It's in the agenda packet.
I might can. Let me see if I
All
can.
right, you go ahead and talk.
Okay.
She'll work
Go
on looking it up.
Before I get started into some of the detail, Bonnie has a statement, do you have your overview statement, or do you want me just to? Yeah.
And just as an FYI, I did put about 5 copies in the back of this, in the back of the room of the,
Thank you.
but there we go.
There we go.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Great
Before
job.
we start talking about the budget adjustment or amendment, I was just going to do a little update on the current year.
Excuse me, the back videos aren't on. Is there a way that we can enlighten them for the people in the back of the room?
Enlighten those TVs.
Illuminate and
It's
enlighten.
There'll
enlighten
be
our
light.
citizenry
Been
here.
on at all, or did they
I
just-
don't know, I just noticed they were
I
off.
think they've been on.
We need to install the clapper here. We do these things, come up and cry. Those two are now off.
There we go.
There we go.
we
Just a
go.
matter of turning them on.
That's why we have an IT specialist.
Yeah.
All right, you ready?
It says, there you go.
All right.
TVs. Okay.
Magic.
All right, just a little summary of the first 7 months of the year on tracking the actual. Revenues and expenses are tracking pretty much as expected. We all know that we don't get our revenues at the same time we get our expenses, so we're waiting on that. In fact, our largest revenue sources are generally received in the last part of the year, including the property taxes. The county has billed those, so we should start, in fact, we're starting to see some of that come in now. We've got $175,000 today for our weekly remittance from the county, and that's usually $15,000 or $20,000, so people are starting to pay their taxes. The two due dates are September 30th and November 15th. And also this year will be the first year we will receive that insurance premium tax, which should be in excess of $2 million. So, and that comes late October. So our financials will look a lot more normal when our revenues come in. Right now we've got more expenses than revenues, but that'll even out by the end of the year. So.
Thank you. Marie?
Yes, just to give you a little bit more detail on some of the additional or new revenues that we did not anticipate at that amount. In fact, if you'll remember, we were very conservative in the budget, so we wanted to be sure that we were not overestimating. We did report to you all back in the early part of the summer that the anticipated tax digest was going to be larger than what we received last year, and that factored into your decision to lower the millage rate. So with that lowering of the millage rate and what we're anticipating still to come in, again, being conservative, we're looking at another $1 million of new additional funds outside of what we budgeted. We're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $400,000 for franchise fees. We're also taking a look at, because of our court has increased in the number of dockets and hearings, and as far as how they're tracking, we think that they're going to exceed their revenues that we projected, and looking at an additional $500,000. We have a new hotel that has opened in the city, and they are filling up their rooms, and we're anticipating additional hotel-motel tax. And as you know, 60% of that collection goes into the general fund, and 40% is earmarked for tourism. So with that, we made some adjustments in the department, and I want to say thank you to all the department heads. We really looked at every single dollar and what would be needed to finish the year at the same level of service that they're delivering to the city, as well as what they thought they could hold off on and wait for a future budget year to expend. So as a result of that, the adjustment has been up and down in some of the departments. The numbers have not changed. There has been some adjustment a little bit higher to accommodate additional costs and unforeseen costs, such as what we found in the parks. We all remember early in the summer we had some severe maintenance issues at our Briarwood pool, had some maintenance issues at Linwood Pool, and what we're finding is as we've taken over the parks and from an operational standpoint, some of the deferred maintenance has shown itself and required immediate expenditures to make those repairs. So we see an adjustment there. Also, we're still spending out of and finishing at the end of this budget adjustment. We will complete our expenditures of the 2013 host. Remember, we rolled that over because we do get that towards the end of the year, and we still have budgeted our host funds for 2014. Just to give you a quick reference, $592,000 will be going to our parks, and that adjustment has been made in the Parks and Recreation budget. And I'd like to just sound this into the record because I think it shows the commitment that the council has made to our park program. In Briarwood, we're looking at $125,000, and that does not include the $40,000 we budgeted for new bathrooms at Briarwood. Blackburn, $100,000, and that includes the pavilion as well as 2 restroom facilities there. External signs to sign every single park as a Brookhaven sign. Ashford Park, we're looking at $50,000 there for new playground equipment. Murphy Candler, another $30,000, and looking at some infrastructure improvement there. And then even some internal signs, the rules of how people conduct themselves within the park is included in there. And then Linwood, $217,000. We completely refurbished the gym. We're launching, in fact, our brochures are out. Some of them are in the back table, a basketball league this fall, and we plan to do the same thing at Briarwood beginning in January. So we are making efforts to refurbish the gym there as well.
Marie, those are all numbers coming from Host?
The numbers I just gave you are coming from Host, but that
from
made
the
the adjustment.
2013
Correct.
budget. Okay,
Correct.
great.
So very excited about that. And again, we're still looking to the 2014, which we have budgeted, and we've not made any changes there. Also, we like to thank the mayor and council for giving up $80,000 of their dollars that went to offset the cost of the AV equipment and the chamber that we enjoy meeting in. The city clerk also contributed to the fund, and what we were doing was looking again where funds that would not be needed to finish out the year and where we could offset that to another department. Community development contributed over $400,000. So as a result of that, we're tracking with our approved budget. We have made those adjustments into the different departments, especially into Parks and Recreation, where we're recovering repairs and maintenance, and then, of course, new capital improvements. However, even with all of that, and with the millage rate reduction, we're still projecting a $1.2 million surplus that we have put into the contingency fund. We'll track that. I do want to report back to you later in the year, probably sometime in December again, because now all of our revenues are starting to come in. And it is my hope that at least $500,000, if not more, can be put into your reserve fund. We still have protected the reserve fund at $2 million, and any extra funds that we can capture, I would recommend that we put that into the reserve. So we are looking very good. I'm very pleased with where we are with this budget, and we are tracking and have 5 months left, and we will probably take a 2-week break, and we'll start on the 2015 budget.
All right. Thank you. You said these park programming, there's some in the back here?
Yes.
It's really interesting. I like this.
Yeah, it's a great-looking brochure, lots of activities, and more to come. And thank you, Jerry Kinsey, our Parks Director. He's been here a little over a month now and has already knocked out the first brochure, and we're going to be doing that every 6 months, or are you doing it quarterly? Twice a year.
Well, I noticed all the this is obviously going to be a trial run for us on
Oh,
a
yes.
lot of these things. So all the activities are being held at Linwood Park Rec Center. Will that change next year, or we'll start expanding to other parks?
Yes,
too?
in January, part of the budget that I just mentioned to you, the $125,000 of the $165,000 for Briarwood goes to the Briarwood Gym, and we will be doing the same thing we did at Linwood. We're going to refurbish the gym itself for basketball play, volleyball play, gymnastics, and other activities that we can use on that court. We're also going to go back in there and clean up and repair some of those offices so we can staff 2 of our rec department members there. We're going to re-roof the roof because it does leak. So there's a lot of major repair and improvements that are going to take place this fall. We're ready to launch that after tonight to start. We've gone through a bidding process. We're waiting now because we'll use the 2014 host funds to make those improvements.
All right.
Is Briarwood Park going to get a new scoreboard that was so rudely ripped off the wall when it was vacated?
Yes, absolutely.
Or did they actually bring that back?
No, they did not.
Oh.
And they did not bring back the pool chairs or tables or anything of that sort.
Well, we get a brand-new board then.
Yeah. So
Yes.
just as a clarification also, when we look at the contingency fund, to repeat, we've spoken about this before, but we're looking at an $18 million general fund, and our goal is to be at 25% of that. Is that correct? Was that the target amount? It's about 4.4 million?
Yeah.
4.5 million?
We would like to have that as our rainy day fund,
Right, so
and
within-
we're almost there.
Within 20 months, we're getting close to the 50%
Yes.
mark. I like that, thank you.
And all with millage rate reductions.
I know. That's
Excellent.
important things. All right. Thank you, Marie. Do you have any more questions or anything? All right. We appreciate it. Is there a motion on the consideration approval of the mid-year budget adjustment?
I'll move that we approve the 2014 mid-year budget adjustment.
And I will second.
Any discussion?
just good work on squeezing all that money out of the
City council.
the existing, yeah, I don't know what we gave up here. I think, Joe, you lost your office, but.
And also, one other comment.
Somebody's going to come and repossess Bates' suit.
No, the story is, if you don't show up the day they give offices, you don't get one.
That's right. But I also want to comment that we considered actually postponing the adoption of this budget, but because it would have affected operational issues for the city, not being able to expend in departments, that we want to go ahead and have the city operations be able to move forward.
Thank you.
Well, and we continued to post the ongoing financials on the
Right.
15th of the month on our website, so you can kind of track to see how we're doing on an ongoing basis.
All right. I might just mention, just for purposes of edification here, Brookhaven is 20 months old. In the first year of cityhood, we went through the budget process 3 different times because we didn't really have complete confidence or reliability on what the revenue stream would be. And that's why we came back for an adjustment, because as the revenues were starting to come in, we could adjust more accurately as to, what our operating budget was and what the total budget was with all the revenues coming in. Same thing now, the funds are coming in, but on a mid-year budget adjustment, it's very typical that when an adjustment is made, it's either on the consent agenda or the city manager sends notice out to the mayor and council as to what the adjustment is. For this purpose tonight, I think it was important to bring that to your attention in a public setting, so that you could see where we are with this, especially the additional revenues that we are now tracking to receive by the end of the year. But, in future years, it most likely will be, as it is in other cities, either a consent agenda item or a memorandum that comes to the mayor and council.
Right. It's a different animal from a budget
Correct.
budget adoption, right?
Right, because the budget adoption will go through public hearings
Right.
and so.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Announcements.
Wait, I think we need to take the
Oh, I'm
vote.
sorry. We were in discussion, weren't we? Yeah.
Second motion.
I did.
He did? Yeah. Any more discussion? All in favor of adopting the budget amendment signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Announcements? I have a little bit of announcements, I guess. I see Joe Pilati here, and Joe, would you want to come up and give a little short presentation based on you don't want to do that? Yeah. No. Joe is the chair of our Transportation Steering Committee, and I wanted to give him a little time to read something out into the record, maybe give it to the clerk so that we can have it for our transportation plan.
Unfortunately, I was on vacation when the plan was presented to council, and I did watch the video one boring night. But the main thing is that this was a planning document. This serves a roadmap that doesn't give you a whole lot of detail of what the scenery looks like along the side of the road, how wide a road may be needed to be widened or improved. And so you're now getting into the tougher decisions of prioritizing the items that are on that plan. And I'm glad to see we have some money set aside for improvements that could be made, or at least the study of improvements. It's very important that we continue with the public involvement, not only overseeing the public works or the transportation plan, and we include a very strong public involvement in the concept development of the projects. Today's world, you must get permission to even think about doing anything versus going out there. I've been there. I have the most wonderful plan, and they said, you didn't ask me for permission to do it, let alone I don't like it, because you didn't. So it's very important that we continue the transparency that you've already started, and that we set priorities on what's known as to some of the roadway projects, as we also set a priority and move forward for the bicycle plan. I think we have an October 22nd meeting that will bring an expert in to talk about an overall plan. And one correction, Mayor, you have 2 bicycle lanes in the city. One of them's on Osborne Road. It's a half a block long on one side of the road. And again, the reason I brought that up is that there needs to be consistency in the plans that we put forward, that the city puts forward, and that different types of facilities need different types of detail. So with that, I'm not going to waste your time. If you have any questions concerning where do you go from here, how do we work with DOT, how do we engage more people into the system, I'll be glad to spend whatever time it is.
We're going to be having a meeting next week with the Parks and Rec Steering Committee and the public on the Parks and Rec plan. I probably should, if you want to have a meeting with the Parks Steering Committee, I mean, the Transportation Steering Committee and the public on further engagement, if you think that's necessary, because you had given some suggestions by email I think would be good to be put into our plan. And I just want to make sure some of that finds its way into our plan, because, you know, we can adopt it on the 9th, or we can defer it tonight and adopt it. You know, there's no legal urgency to when we have to adopt the plans, other than we need to get a plan going and get it adopted. But I want to make sure that the plans reflect what we all need to have in the plans from the public and from the council, as well as the consultants.
You do have some urgency, because I think people, from your past actions and the activities that you've already undertaken, they're going to expect some type of deliverables from this plan, because I think some of the people will have your view, all right, you got this plan, so what?
Right.
It's a piece of paper.
Right.
So priorities such as the MARTA station area and Peachtree, traffic analysis, are putting together a concept development team, citizens committee included on I think Ashford Dunwoody is probably the #1 item, but there's a lot of other things, capacity analysis of all the intersections. The plan you got was segment analysis, not at the intersections, and some of the corrections can be done at intersections, not along lengths of roadway. And the same way to marry a bicycle plan into those roadway improvements, if need be, if they're bicycle lanes, shared lanes, et cetera. And again, the safety endeavor of informing the public what is the law regarding pedestrians, regarding bicyclists, because I just came back from Portland, and it's a very pedestrian, bicycle savvy area, and it was amazing to watch the people, because it was known what to do, when to do it.
Right.
Here, it's not, and I would call your attention to that.
Well, I appreciate it. I just don't want to lose any of the momentum we have with the steering committee. So, Marie, I'd like to, at some point in the next couple of weeks, have a meeting with the steering committee and the comprehensive plan, and the transportation plan, to bring some of the suggestions, make sure that they make their way into the plan before we adopt the plan.
Okay.
All right. You'd be willing to do that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate your service, Joe.
Oh, anytime.
Joe, you have an open invite to come to the October meeting when we talk about our bike lanes.
Right, I've responded back, and I've also contacted ARC. Unfortunately, my boss, I work part-time for ARC on call. She's not going to be in town. They're having a big conference somewhere else. But we're trying to find somebody who's bike savvy to come. I've also haven't contacted yet, but GDOT's bicycle pedestrian planner, to see if it's a new person, so I'm not sure what benefit it might have. But again, it would at least open the door to GDOT and to ARC as you start talking about priorities, putting things in the plan. If you change laneage, it has to go through air quality analysis. So the ARC is involved, not turn lanes, but through lanes. And to start opening the door to those organizations when we start talking about not only priorities, but funding.
Yeah, funding, that's the key part.
Maybe we could put the transportation plan on the work session, Marie, of next week, next meeting. Have a I'd just like to have some more of his expertise and make sure that our transportation plan has been vetted by as many experts and citizens as possible.
And you've got some members of that team that are experts in the CIDs and Buckhead, et cetera, that would be very valuable. Let's not make any mistakes that they've already made. Let's learn from their mistakes.
All right.
Excellent.
All right.
Thank you,
very
Joe.
much, Joe. Thank you. All right. Any more announcements? All right, Susan, reports and presentations. You got a National Payroll Week proclamation?
Yes, we're supposed to have Mrs. Darlene Dolly Moses in the audience.
Can you let me read that?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Darlene Dolly Moses. Is she in the office?
Yes, come
in
on.
the audience?
Y'all come on down, in the green shirts. All right.
Yes. And you
The
have the,
National Payroll Week proclamation. For payrolls too, yeah. Yes, yes.
Right. What do we use for payroll?
ADP.
ADP, big dog.
Have the
we would just ask Ms. Moses to tell us about the organization, and then, Mayor, you have the proclamation to give to them,
Do I? Okay.
and you'll need to
Oh,
read it. One of
okay.
us needs to read it.
I'll read it. Well, you can go ahead and, like a minute, and
Okay,
then I'll.
well, the American Payroll Association basically is an educational nonprofit, and what we try to do is keep all of our payroll professionals here in the Atlanta, Brookhaven, Dunwoody, Sandy Springs area involved with education, the continuing of that, so that we're always apprised of all the new laws that involve taxes, child support, et cetera, that a payroll person has to take care of. And of course, you know, we have to get a timely payroll out to everybody, or you end up getting some calls from people that aren't very happy. But that's our main goal, is just the continuing education of our members. And every year, we do designate the week of Labor Day as National Payroll Week. And that way, we try to get everybody to know just how very important their payroll departments are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Whereas the American Payroll Association and its 23,000 members have launched a nationwide public awareness campaign that pays tribute to the more than 160 million people who work in the United States and the payroll professionals who support the American system of paying wages, reporting worker earnings, and withholding federal employment taxes. And whereas payroll professionals play an increasingly important role in ensuring the economic security of American families by helping to identify non-custodial parents and making sure they comply with their child support mandates. And whereas payroll professionals have become increasingly proactive in educating both the business community and the public at large about the payroll tax withholding systems. And whereas payroll professionals meet regularly with federal and state tax officials to discuss both improving compliance with government procedures and how compliance can be achieved at less cost to both government and businesses. And whereas the week, September 1st to September 5th, 2014, in which Labor Day falls, has been proclaimed National Payroll Week, I hereby give additional support to the efforts of the people who work in Brookhaven, Georgia. And that's this 26th day of August, 2014. Thank you. Here's the proclamation. All right. Picture? I say, pay me.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming out. Thank you. Sure.
All right. Go ahead.
Next item is an update on Chatcom. As previously mentioned in recent meetings, I've been giving you updates on the date for going live. We are on track to go live with new Chatcom 911 on September the 3rd. Right, September 3.
All right. It's exciting.
Very.
Chatcom's coming September 3rd, new 911 service, so keep our fingers crossed. All right, that it happens that day. All right, any old business?
No old business.
New business.
New business, ordinance 2014-07-07, consideration and approval of an ordinance to amend Chapter 14, Land Development of the Code of the City of Brookhaven, Georgia, to replace Article 2 entitled Environmental Control, Section 14-39 Tree Ordinance. And we are allowing public comment.
All right. Okay. Is there any presentation necessary, or just we're going to public comment now?
Yes, Kay is here, and as you know, we did have the ordinance posted, and we did receive a number of comments from council members, and what she's going to do is review those comments and state whether that's in the ordinance or still needs discussion by the council. There was also a request asked by the council to take a look at the City of Atlanta tree ordinance and how did that compare to ours, so she's prepared to discuss that with you all.
All right, Kay, come on down, or sit at your desk there.
I'm sorry. Okay, what I'd like to do is go over the tree ordinance revisions as a result of 8/18/2014 meeting with mayor and council member in response to comments they received. Under the section of general applicability, C1 added the following language: this tree ordinance shall only apply to any activity which requires the issuance of a permit or notice that includes land disturbance or otherwise has an impact on trees. No such permit shall be issued until it is determined by the city arborist that the proposed activity conforms with the provisions of this section 1439. Under definitions and tree removal exemptions, it was asked that the definitions be put first in the ordinance, so section E became section D. And under that section of definitions, the definition of diameter was changed to be easier to understand by all. It now reads diameter at breast height, or DBH, means the diameter of a trunk of a tree measured in inches at height of 4 1/2 feet above the ground. If a tree splits into multiple trunks below 4 1/2 feet, then the trunk is measured at its most narrow point beneath the split. If using an inch tape, measure the circumference of the trunk at breast height and divide by 3.14. An example is given: 62 inches of circumference divided by 3.14 gives a total of 19.74, or 20 inches diameter at breast height. 3.14 equals pi. Under the definition of tree fund, subsection 4 concerning boundary trees was removed. Under tree removal exemptions, the section D1 became section E1, and the wording was changed. Permit became canopy reduction notice. A density factor of 50 inches DBH of trees per acre is maintained, and provided a tree canopy reduction notice with no fee for documentation purposes is obtained from the Community Development Department. Trees less than 8-inch DBH may be removed from an owner-occupied single-family residential property without a permit, so long as a density factor of 50 DBH inches of trees per acre is maintained. All stream buffer and floodplain acreage shall be excluded when calculating the density factor requirement contained within this section E1. Trees under 7.9 DBH can be removed without notice. Under the tree removal exemption further, section E3, the requirement for a certified arborist report or photographs or permit was removed from the section. The removal of any tree that is hazardous or becomes or threatens to become a danger to human life or property. There is no permit, notice, or plant back requirement under this section E3. Protection of trees during construction, that's section H2D. Wording was added, which is or larger, it reads, if fatally damaged, trees shall be recompensed on a 1.5 inch per 1 inch basis with a combination of 2 inch, 3-inch and 4-inch or larger calipered overstory trees. Continuing in that section, H2D was changed to, the applicant shall notify the adjoining property owner of a boundary tree in writing that the CRZ of a boundary tree is to be disturbed, and if the tree should thereafter be damaged or die due to construction impacts, it will be handled as a civil matter between the applicant and the boundary tree owner. The applicant must provide a copy of any letters and the certificates of mailing prior to the issuance of a permit. Under tree density requirements, section H1 was changed to, the city requires the preservation of trees having a density factor of 100 dBH inches per acre and having a dBH of 8 inches or greater with no more than 20% CRZ disturbance. The only allowable exceptions are for sites having less than 100 dBH inches of trees before development, or only dead, dying, or hazardous trees as verified by a certified arborist. Trees located within the buildable area of a site may be removed provided a density factor of 100 dBH inches of trees per acre is maintained. Under the specimen recompense section, it was requested that section H1I be changed to reduce the cap amounts for single-family residential sites and to offer incentives. So that wording was changed to, the number of inches subject to a specimen recompense fee shall not exceed 50 inches dBH per acre, in addition to the required 100 inches of dBH for preservation, nor shall it exceed $62,500 per acre in any case. A reduction of up to 50% of recompense can be granted if the site design includes dedicated green space and/or green infrastructure practices found on the Environmental Protection Agency website, that is listed in the code as well, the website address, including but not limited to bioretention, rain gardens, infiltration trenches, bioswales, permeable pavement, stormwater planters, subsurface infiltration, rainwater harvesting cisterns, and green roofs. The removal of trees from the floodplain section 3D was changed to, as part of a land disturbance application, and this was added, it still exists as it was, it's just this section was added under D. As part of a land disturbance application that conforms to the stream buffer and floodplain ordinance requirements contained in Article 2 and Article 4 of Chapter 14 of the Code. In addition to these changes, it was requested that I make a review comparison of the City of Atlanta tree ordinance. I did that, and I forwarded it to the council on August 1st. Would you like me to review that with you?
Briefly.
Briefly. Briefly. Okay. I shall try.
Just the major ones.
Major thing with the City of Atlanta ordinance. It is a no net loss of canopy ordinance. So basically there's an inch-for-inch replacement plus a fee to the tree fund that they created based on the difference between the trees removed versus the replant inches. So whatever that, if there's overage or a difference between those 2 inch amounts, then a recompense fee is paid at $100 per tree and a separate fee of $30 per inch. So they also have the same specimen tree requirements as our existing ordinance under DeKalb, which is large hardwoods including pines, 30 inches and greater at dBH, small understory trees at 10 inches and greater, and then penalty section for them. It's basically the same as ours, where the first violation shall be no less than $500, subsequent violations $1,000 for someone found in violation of the tree ordinance. The Atlanta police are empowered to stop a project. They have an interesting section on that penalty section that says that if someone clears a lot or clears a site and they cannot determine how many trees were on it, they automatically assume it had 1,000 inches, which is 16-inch trees for large tracts of land, and then they bring it down prorated for smaller tracts of land, and they impose a fee at $60,000 fine for that if they can't determine what you removed. Let's see, they establish a tree commission in their ordinance. Let's see. Every tree removed in the city of Atlanta, whether on private property or public property, requires a permit to remove. Under that permit, a posting must be made on the property. This includes private property owners. If they wish to remove a tree, must post a notice on their property for 10 days saying that proposed removal is asked for. They have to mark the tree that's proposing to be removed. After that 10-day period, they are granted a preliminary approval, and then they have to repost an additional 5 days notice visible on their property that says, we've been given preliminary approval to remove this tree. And at that point, anyone can turn in an appeal to say, no, we don't want you to cut that tree down to the city. Then the city arborist has to come out based on that appeal. If he agrees, then you, as a private property owner, cannot remove your tree. If there is no appeal, then after that point, they grant the approval to remove the tree to the private homeowner. Under a building permit that is applied for, and it states very clearly, trees, let's see, Atlanta has exemptions for the buildable area, just like every other ordinance that I've ever read. If a tree is located within the buildable area of the lot, the applicant has been granted a building, landscape, or other permit to make improvements otherwise permissible under the ordinances of the city. They're allowed to remove those trees and recompense. They're also allowed to remove the area of egress, including the driveways, and they're allowed to remove dead, damaged, diseased, or hazard trees. Let's see, you're also allowed to remove trees under 12 inches diameter on private property. If they are a mimosa, tree of heaven, white mulberry, chinaberry, princess tree, pawina, cherry laurel, Bradford pear, or Leyland cypress, without permit or recompense.
Hating on some trees there.
Yeah. Let's see, tree harvesting and stand reductions are also allowed with a silviculture prescription by a certified arborist. Alternative compliance is allowed. Applicants who, for standards for tree replacement and reforestation, basically is a tree for tree. So if you remove a tree, you're supposed to replant trees. So it's tree for tree. Although, if you can't fit all the trees back on the lot that you had to remove from your buildable area, again, it does exactly what our code does. It allows you to plant near the area that it was removed. And if you still can't fit them all back, then alternative compliance is allowed and you recompense back to the tree fund, just as we've set ours up.
Is there any size specified on that? Is that just for specimen trees?
Nope, that's any tree.
So
There is no
it's-
special requirement in their code for recompense concerning a specimen tree. It just says it must be replaced tree for tree.
So whether it's a 2-inch tree or a 38-inch tree? Or a pine, or I guess mimosas you can cut down. They don't like mimosas. Okay.
Oh, it does apply only to trees 6 inches and greater.
Okay.
So 6 inches and less, you're allowed to remove.
Right.
Let's see, anything else? They have caps on the amounts of recompense, basically based on zoning and percentages of the zoning minimum trees retained. So you have a 45% that you have to retain on site, which is the equivalent of our you must save so many inches. They're saving 45% of the trees. And their maximum cap is $10,000 at its max per acre.
Ours is 62,000?
Mm-hmm.
No, no, ours is 6,200.
Yeah.
Per acre.
62.
Per acre, 50 inches per acre, which specs out to 6,250.
Not 62,000.
Right, it caps at 62,005 for like a 10-acre site would cap it
Oh,
at 62.5.
Oh, for 10 acres, okay.
Let's see, density, basically they do it again by zoning, and it goes from smaller zoning residentials at 35 inches per acre up to 90 inches per acre. And then on commercials, it goes from 100 inches to 150 inches per acre.
So ours is more than that.
Ours is 100 flat for everybody,
And theirs is 35 inches?
for smaller lots, yes.
Okay.
Ours can be less than 100 inches if it's less, a smaller lot, you mean less than an acre?
Right,
So ours is less for smaller than an acre.
So theirs is
right.
35.
It goes on per acreage
Right.
percentage,
And theirs is per acre, or?
per acre as well.
Theirs
Theirs is 35 inches per acre for a smaller zoning site, and then it goes up to 90 inches per acre on the larger residential zoning sites. And then commercials go from 100 to 150 inches per acre. It's all based on inches per acre, just like ours is.
Right.
Let's see. Construction site save trees, they have basically the same requirements that were in our old ordinance with the tree protection area, fencing either being orange or chain link, or silt fence if silt runs into the area. But we added the extra benefit of 2 inches of mulch plus mycorrhizae treatments, which lets our root system develop and so hopefully survive any construction around it. Let's see, floodplains in City of Atlanta, they allow removals of trees from the floodplains. A maximum 10% of the trees in a designated wetland or 100-year floodplain may be approved for removal or destruction. That's all it says. Boundary trees, city arborists may prescribe and the applicant shall institute additional protective measures to limit impact on the trees during construction. We've also included that with our tree protection plan. They also include watering regimes, root treatments, mulching, deadwood removal, and protective pruning. And they also require an independent certified arborist prescription be done on the boundary tree before construction begins. Let's see, they have a dead tree provision that we do not have that includes nuisances. So if a person had a dead tree and everyone that was living next to it said, hey, I'm afraid this is going to fall, I've asked them to take it down and they won't, then the city at that point can get involved, issue a notice for them to remove said tree, and if they fail to do so, it ends up in a court process.
A city court process?
Yes, city court process. And that's pretty much the breakdown on the City of Atlanta ordinance.
You used to make a comment that dead tree
Nuisance.
the nuisance, the dead tree nuisance, we do not have that in ours. Is that something we should consider?
We had it in an earlier version, and for some reason it was removed.
Given that it's being brought up as a subject of conversation, what's your opinion on that?
I think personally, on a personal note, it should either be in a tree protection ordinance or a code enforcement, property maintenance ordinance, I would think, is where it's usually located, one or the two.
So what, that's because we've had some issues with that.
Yes.
I've been out to a couple houses, people call me, there's, the remedy is a civil remedy.
Yes.
But I guess you have to wait for the disaster to happen to collect
Unfortunately,
on that.
yes.
But, what is one man's nuisance another man's treasure? That's, so if a tree is dead and gonna die, or dead and gonna die, if it's dead, gonna fall, how do you determine that? I mean, some trees can be dead for a long time and not fall, and
It just depends on the tree and the species and the type of wood and then what killed it and how strong the supporting roots are, which way the wind is blowing. There's really no way to tell.
right, okay. All right, thank you, Kay.
You're welcome.
Kay, do you think our requirement of the inch-for-inch replacement on the specimens is as strong, if not stronger, than the Atlanta ordinance?
I think it's as strong, yes.
Was there anything you picked up from the Atlanta ordinance that you thought was valuable that we should or need to incorporate?
I did like, they offered a credit. They offer credits basically for low-income housing builds. So I looked at that and I thought, well, I'm not sure of the legalities of all that, but then I thought about the green infrastructure and how other people in the public comment period have brought up the fact that trees soak up water and slow water movement, drainage, and help create perk. And that's what led me to the EPA website for green infrastructure as a incentive credit.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that we've added that. I think that's good.
All right, thank you, Kay.
Thank you.
So public comment is open on this.
Sandra Murray.
Thank you for letting me speak again.
No, it's not. It's
To be a
not.
green light.
There we go. We're good. Thank you for letting me speak again on the tree ordinance. I,
We're not letting you, it's your right.
thank you. As long as you fill out the form and submit everything and agree to all the stipulations. However, I feel like we've made progress on this. The first time I talked with you was back in June, and we have made some improvements to our tree ordinance. But there are still some things about it that really bother me. And you saw the two pictures when Peter Jepson was speaking, and he lives across the street from me, so he is well aware of those two lots. But the one that's sitting with the 40 feet of mud piled high has been that way for 4 or 5 weeks. If you look at that picture, there's no way you can tell me that it is the footprint of the house. Much more. Many more trees were cleared. And that's, I guess that is the building technique that the developers use these days, is to clear as much of the lot as they can. And then, in this case, I don't believe there's any requirement to replace anything, because Kay has told me that they already have left a fringe of trees around the border of the lot that will suffice under our current and our proposed ordinance. I just don't think it's good enough. I think that we are taking a neighborhood that is highly forested, and we're going to turn it into a neighborhood of a few fringe trees here and there, and it will not resemble anything that many of us who've lived here for a few years actually bought our houses for. So I want you to consider a couple of things. One is 5 trees is too many. I think, it's certainly reasonable that a person who has a house that wants to cut down a tree is fine. I can't argue against that. But if you allow 5 trees, I can conceive of some ideas where maybe a person's thinking about selling their house, and the developer that wants to buy it would say, well, cut down these 5 trees because you can do it. There's no cost to you other than paying for someone to cut them down. You get a permit. It's fine. But then the developer doesn't have to replace them either, because maybe the homeowner's already left enough trees for their requirements, but not necessarily the developer's requirements. So I want you to think about that. Certainly, I don't want you to vote on this, to enact this at this point. And I would still like to ask you for a moratorium on tree cutting until we get this resolved. Thank you.
Next.
Sharon Brecky.
I'm Sharon Brecky. I live at 2695 Reading Road. And I'm sorry I'm not able to put these pictures up, but this...
Just show me the clerk, and then you can bring them up here.
And you can keep those and put them in the record.
Thank you.
This concerns a property not far from me on Reading Way, and how that got put together as a property is interesting. But anyway, that's not the issue. All but 3 trees on that property were cut. And those trees are at the very back of the lot behind the house. The picture was taken during one of the heavier rainstorms, but I think maybe I got 2.5 inches in my little rain gauge. The water that you see there goes into an ephemeral stream that they have determined that this area is now floodplain. It certainly was floodplain across the street before. And that water goes from that creek into the North Fork of Peachtree Creek, and then eventually into the Chattahoochee River. And that creates further problems for our water supply, et cetera. So I request also to wait on voting on this ordinance to tighten up the existing language to keep as many trees as possible. It looks like they cut some into the floodplain, and we need to make sure that that does not happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That looks like a code issue. Go ahead.
Laurenthia Mesh.
Thank you. Councilman Gabia, Councilman Matheson, Council Lady Williams, and Mayor Davis.
Susan?
As former engineer for DeKalb County and former command engineer at Command Headquarters for the Pentagon, I respectfully present, this is Silver Lake before and Silver Lake after. It's a matter of semantics between us and the arborist.
I want to ask clerk, when people submit exhibits, if they could identify what they are, like the address or you know, where they are located, then we would be able to.
All right, the address was given by Sandy and Mr. Pedersen earlier, so it's the same address. And there are 6 lots like that in Silver Lake, and 200 more around the city of Brookhaven, which pictures have been submitted to you. Has my time started yet?
Go ahead.
Yes. Okay. It's a matter of semantics between us.
Give her an extra minute, please. 'Cause
Okay. It's a matter of semantics between us and the arborist who says this is not clear cutting because there is a tree in the corner. They say this is called periodic thinning of the forest. But I've lived here 50 years and I haven't seen this because the zoning kept the character of the neighborhood. But when this city came in, it threw out restrictions on height and size. And I respectfully request you put them back because zoning must keep the character of the neighborhood. That is the problem here. It cannot continue putting houses in within 5 feet of the granted variance of the property lines because the roofs are equal to parking lots. They are defined as impervious surface, which increases the stormwater intrusion into the streams and will cost us millions of dollars to install larger storm drains. I request a deferral of the vote and a $10,000 study to look at the effects on the drainage basins in the future generations when this character of our neighborhoods before and after is destroyed forever. This inch for inch is not the same thing because the canopy is defined as the leaves touching overhead. And if you replace 100 inches, or in this case 50 inches on the half acre on Saybrook, then that's equal to 12 4-inch trees this big. And that's just not enough. It's not equal to the character of the neighborhood. By the way, my antebellum property at the corner of Ashford Dunwoody and Johnson Ferry meets all tree restrictions, and you promised me some cherry trees, which I'll be happy to plant to make it beautiful for you.
You said you wanted to plant some.
Yes, well, I'll buy them, whatever. Thank you.
Kay.
Ruth Little.
Okay, I have a question for Kay.
Yes, sir.
Bill, would you take that one, that one there? Okay, I think that's on Mabry. That's a huge.
That is, yeah, that's Mabry. And that's not taken of all the trees at the front. There's huge trees to the right of that photograph that were saved. There's also trees along the back corridor that you see and some on the sides, and it more than meets 120 per inches.
They say that wasn't such a huge house, but it was a typical house, you know, a 3,000 square foot house being built 50 years ago. The houses that were built 50 or 60 years ago in Silver Lake or other areas, would that be the same thing they would have done back then, and the trees you see there now are 60 years old?
Any tree, any site that's been built in Brookhaven, the buildable area for the house they were going to construct was cleared.
Right.
Before they built the house.
Right. Hold on. There are rules in the back of the room, and we have rules for people to understand that we have to have decorum so that we don't break down and get uncivil discourse. Okay. So we just need, the reason we have procedures about submitting exhibits and doing those things because we're, trying not to be barbarians. So that's what the question is that 60 years ago, when you built a house, you would have to clear the lot just like you would clear a lot today. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then you would plant trees, and trees you see planted 60 years ago would be like an oak that's 60 years old. How tall would that be? 60.
Well, anywhere from, 50 to 70 to 80, depending on if it gets what it needs.
Right, okay. So once houses like this, once you see them scraped, and then they put the house and they put the landscape and they plant trees, in 40, 50 years, you'll see something similar to what you see on a neighboring lot.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Just want to make sure we understand the distinction that I understand it, that clear cutting or scraping or building a new home requires some trees to be taken down, but they're also required to be planted back, so you have a healthy canopy with some trees being small, some being medium, some being large.
Right. And I might make note, too, that when you use the word buildable area of the lot, you are within the setbacks.
Right.
So you cannot build outside of the setbacks to the property line, front, rear, and sides.
Right.
You are allowed to clear and build within those building setbacks. It is not the building footprint. That's different. The footprint is contained within side of the setbacks.
Right.
So that's what we can't block them from doing, is
Okay.
removing trees in that buildable area.
Right. Okay. Next. Anybody have
Ruth
any-
Little.
Okay. Hi, how you doing, Miss Little?
Good, thanks. Ruth Little, Nesbitt Drive, and I do have a question, if I may, before I start.
Sure.
Oh,
The microphone's on. There you go.
okay. I do have a question before I start. Did you say that they cannot take the trees out of the setbacks, but they can only take the trees out of the buildable areas? I was not clear on what you
There's
said.
a reference to floodplains that you made. I think that's what she may be returning, or
We couldn't-
that the stream buffer.
No, just repeat what you
Yeah, I was saying they're allowed to remove all the trees from the buildable area of the lot inside the setbacks. They can also remove trees outside the setbacks as long as they maintain the inches required per code. Like under the DeKalb ordinance, it required 120 inches per code.
Thank you. Okay. Now, find my glasses. And this time I brought glasses that I can see with. May I submit this?
Location, please.
Yes, ma'am. These are not my photos. I borrowed these because that one looks like the house across, the lot across the street from us. We lost about 8 to 10 trees on the single lot, what we thought was a single lot across the street, found out that they were going to build 2 houses on it. So they immediately had 10 trees allowed to be removed. So the tree canopy is completely destroyed, fringe of trees, as you would expect, but all of the ones that were protecting our neighborhood are gone. And these were huge trees. I would love to see you declare the moratorium on cutting. We've been asking for this for weeks. We need the moratorium so that as you debate, as you study and take counsel on the best way to go with regulations, that we have a buffer of protection from all of this wanton loss. I think we need stronger fees for the loss of trees so that the builders have to seriously consider what they're doing. And as we're talking about, well, they'll grow back in 30, 40 years. If you go to the most desirable neighborhoods, whether it's at Emory or Agnes Scott, in town it would be Peachtree Hills, Ansley Park, you're looking at trees that are 100 years old. And those canopies are awesome. We cannot reproduce those if we've lost most of our trees now. I don't know that I'm going to be here 40 years from now, and I'd like to still have some canopy in the meantime. As a matter of fact, the lower part of our road has already been a floodplain, and the city or the county has had to buy up houses on both sides of the creek. So it's been a cost to the county just because development has already created the floodplain or nature, wherever it comes from. But as the houses across the street, one house went out, 2 houses are going in. We've had dirt on the street, up and down. This has to affect the development that's already been done, as with the retention pond on Drew Valley, that things have to be changing in terms of what's already been put out there to solve our problems.
Go ahead.
So,
Go ahead.
oh, thank you. So please wait for the passage of an ordinance till you get everything you need. Thank you for the information on the Atlanta ordinance tonight. I just would like to see higher fees charged, like $1,000 per tree. So it really matters to the builders what they're taking down.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You just asked Kay what's the fine.
Hey, what are the penalties in our proposed bill?
Right now, in the proposed bill, once a developer submits a tree protection plan, if they remove a tree that's on that plan, it would be an automatic first offense of $500. Any subsequent offense, any other tree removed illegally, would be $1,000 per tree.
Next.
Joanne Russler.
Thank you very much for letting me exercise my right to speak to you, Mayor Davis and council people. My name is Joanne Russler. I live at 3215 Saybrook Drive, right around the corner from Peter, who spoke earlier. I won't belabor the issues of 3188 Saybrook and 3176, but they have changed the character of our street. Nobody could argue that aesthetics have been improved, but more to the point, the water drainage through the stream that goes into Silver Lake, if you come and look when we have heavy rain, you see the red clay. Now, something that happened, Peter and we put in a water garden in the ravine between our homes years ago, and it worked until all the development at Linwood started, which is blocks away. When that happened, it washed our water garden right into Silver Lake. That's how unintended consequences are doing bad things. Silver Lake Association, we've spent many hundreds of thousands of dollars draining. We'll have to do it again. So I am asking, one, you defer a vote on this ordinance until it meets the standards that will protect our canopy, and 100 inches per acre is clearly not enough by any aesthetic and scientifically, environmentally positive effects. Two, that the inches be increased, the incentives to builders or the disincentives to cut trees have to be aligned with what is our goal. Right now, it's cheaper for them to just take down the trees and build. Their profit margin on the kind of houses that are being developed here are such that it is better for them to just cut. We need to create a disincentive where, like Ruth Little said, for they really, truly have to think about what they're doing and the long-term consequences. I don't know about Ruth, but I know I won't be here in 40 years. But I want the next generations to have the beauty we do. And in that sense, I think sometimes familiarity breeds contempt. And if you've lived here long enough, you forget what truly a treasure this is. And it was really brought home to me when my sister-in-law, who lives in Highland Park, Texas, and some of you may know that's like where George Bush lives. We're talking $5 to $10 to $15 million houses. She was awestruck by the trees in our neighborhood. Just think about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Kathy Fike.
Mike. Clerk.
Thank you. These are
Location.
various pictures of construction. Somebody else's pictures, but it's just.
You know where they are?
It's the general picture. They're all in Brookhaven, but I don't know specifically which streets. My name is Kathy Fike. I live at 1448 Etowah Drive, 2 blocks south of Dresden. I am in Brookhaven Fields. I have had the privilege of living in a wonderfully leafy neighborhood for 27 years. Mine is one of the last original little houses in Brookhaven. And I love my little house. I don't want to move. I am asking you for 3 things. One is a 90-day moratorium on cutting trees. Number 2, a public hearing, because I think it's pretty obvious from all of these remarks that there's a lot of us who feel very, very strongly about this. And we're giving up our time in the evenings and during the day to come and talk about it. Please give us a public hearing. And number 3 is to defer a vote today. We don't want to rush into this. We want to make sure that we have the right decision in the right amount of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fike. Next.
Dale Boone.
Where's Dale?
Honorable Mayor, Honorable City Council, how are you doing tonight? This ordinance looks great to me. I want to commend Kay for doing a wonderful job. I know she's been an arborist, and the only complaints I hear tonight are something that can be amended down the road. So the ordinance that they've put together and time-consuming that they have put together, it looks great to me. I see no reason for it to be passed. I mean, it should be passed. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. All right.
Carrie McBrayer.
Good evening. My name is Carrie McBrayer, and I reside at 3348 Inman Drive. Thank you for hearing my comments. And I'm here as a citizen. I have no corporate affiliations. 25 years ago, we built our house on that undeveloped lot at 3348 Inman Drive. We had to cut a lot of trees. I understand the concept that this is necessary in order to build a home. But we kept as many trees as possible. It was more expensive to save the trees, but the investment has paid handsome rewards. These include lower utility bills for air conditioning, no erosion, lots of privacy, and lots of birds and critters. I am here to request 1, a moratorium for tree cutting, until 2, we can enact an ordinance which will protect our neighborhood's tree canopy and be second to none. Brookhaven's tree ordinance should be the best in the state of Georgia. And number 3, we need to allocate funding for arborists and other professionals in order to put some real teeth into the ordinances that we adopt. I suggest that there are some ways to find this money, but that's probably an issue for another day. Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. McBrayer. Next.
Edith Fusilo.
Philo.
My name is Edith Fusillo. I live at 3980 Granger Drive, and I have lived in Brookhaven for 48 years. I think it would be ill-advised to pass this ordinance while 20% of the citizens of Brookhaven have no representation on the city council. It's my understanding that that vacancy will be filled in November, and I believe all action should wait until then. I would also, and I do appreciate the changes that have been made since the last time we visited this ordinance, but I would suggest a very careful reading. I have downloaded from the city's website my copy, and it matches exactly the copies available at the back, and there's some pretty obvious errors, mistypes, sentence peculiarities, which might in fact, if you pass this immediately, render this document void. So I urge you to wait until all of Brookhaven has a say in this and to read it very carefully. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Masillo. Did you have a child named Dylan? I do. Oh, at the high school.
I still have a child named Dylan.
Dylan Facillo. All right.
Victor Herrick.
Hi, Victor Herrick. I live in Drew Valley. All of y'all know me very well. 3 points. Put a moratorium on cutting trees. Do not pass this ordinance tonight. I appreciate the efforts that Kay made to compare our ordinance to the City of Atlanta's. However, I think we need to do more. I'm going to provide you some information about a lot that's above my house on Ewing Drive at the corner of Drew Valley. A builder who you're aware of came in and completely cut every tree down the lot except for one tree. It was a 1/4 acre lot. He did not need to because the trees that he cut down were all right on the property lines and the street line of the property. What this ended up causing was extreme flooding into the neighbor below him. Since they complained and they went to the city put a work order stop on his property and fined him, although he claims the city allowed him to cut the trees. What has happened since then is he came in and put in a huge French drain system at the bottom of his property. The neighbors on the other side of the property line had to do the same thing because their house was still flooding. He put in ornamental trees, and then he decided to change the entire topography of the yard since he had already cut it all down and raised the yard 6 feet tall. Put in a retaining wall, and all this was underneath the canopy of a 65-inch hardwood tree that was on the property of the neighbors behind him. Since he did that 6 or 7 months ago and damaged all the root systems so dramatically with all the cutting and with all the infrastructure that he put in, the tree subsequently uprooted and fell down across Ewing Drive and took out all the power lines. And there is nothing that the homeowners could do against him because we have nothing in our ordinance to prevent damage to the root systems for changing of topography or anything. We discussed this at the last meeting about border protection for trees. One of the gentlemen that lived on Windsor Parkway was having that issue because the builder had come in and cut out the foundation and it was damaging the roots on his trees at the property line. So I think we need to do more about this. We used to be able to look down Ewing Drive and see nothing except trees. Now all I see is this massive house and all the houses up on Drew Valley because everything's been removed by this builder. And there's nothing being done to him, and the poor homeowners behind him had to pay close to $2,000 to get this tree removed off their property. And we've lost everything there. All the impervious water's coming through, they're being flooded like crazy. So please stop the tree cutting and also do a little bit more in this ordinance. It needs to have more teeth. It needs to put a little bit more bite into the builders, like what is happening in Decatur and the City of Atlanta. They need to be able to understand what they're getting ready to get into before they just go build a house and then make all the profit. Thank you.
Okay, don't we have a notice provision for a boundary tree like he was discussing?
We do.
What does it do again? What do you have to do?
Sorry, you have to show the boundary tree on the permit. You have to show the roots that encroach into, or the roots that go into the property wanting to be developed, and you have to protect them. You can't cut into the structural root plate.
Right.
And no more than 20%.
They have to notify the neighbor of the boundary tree, so
Yes.
that would be the evidence that they would need to say you are responsible for our, okay, all right.
Exactly.
Thank you. Next.
Linda Taylor.
Remind me, Kay, is this new, or is this something that's in the existing ordinance?
No, there is nothing in the existing DeKalb County ordinance to cover boundary trees.
Thank you.
Hey, are you aware of this situation the young Mr. Herrick was just describing?
I'm familiar. Yeah, and
Okay.
the stuff that was done, it was a 24-inch tree that fell across the roadway. The builder had graded into that area without permission. He was stop work ordered, he was fined, and he was required to plant back, which he did. And that was our concern, was that grading that had been done. So we had him hire an independent arborist that went out and looked at the tree. before CO and said that the tree would withstand the impacts, this, that, and the other thing. Which just goes to show you, when a tree's going to come down, Mother Nature impacts it. That's all there is to it, especially if it's had any kind of impaction.
What was the requirement on the plant back?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I'd have to go back and look at the file. He planted a lot of 2- and 3-inch caliper material out on the site. At what was removed per code.
Wait till after Ms. Taylor.
Okay.
Come on, Ms. Taylor.
Thank you for waiting.
I'm Linda Taylor, and I am 3160 Lanier Drive. I'm president of the Oglethorpe Estates Civic Association. I want to commend you for telling us at length about what Atlanta does with their tree ordinance. Thank you very much. And also, I want to commend you for having a critical root zone thing that is as good as Atlanta. Again, I want to commend you. The thing I guess I want to talk about has been talked about a great deal, that what do we do about enforcement? I think that it's wonderful that we have all the inches and all the feet and everything, but who's going to be there to make sure that that happens? And frankly, I really have very, very seldom seen it really upheld. So how can we do that? And to police it, really, and to, look at all those inches and say, is this right, and so on. So I guess I had some thoughts. First of all, I think we need more staff to help Kay. If we're really serious about this, if we want to do that. And also, as the neighbors here, they have said, you have to, if you're going to have to stop them having violations, make it hurt. Like maybe pull their permit if they have maybe the second violation or something like that. Or do other things like what they do with stormwater, okay, and silt fence. They just shut the site. It's down until they fix it. If we're really serious, I think we need to do something like that. And also, I am with many, many others here. I would like us to defer for the vote for all the reasons that they're saying so. I think, we've done much good work, and we're doing better, but maybe we're not quite ready quite yet. Thank you.
Ronald Sprinkle.
Good evening. My name is Ron Sprinkle, 1664 Foresta Court, Brookhaven, Georgia. Just 4 quick points. Point number 1, when a number of you were running for office a few years ago, you came to my neighborhood cookout. We had about 70 families there. We specifically asked if there was going to be a push to control what homeowners can do with their trees. And we were told specifically that that was not on the agenda. Something seems to have changed since that. Secondly, I probably own more trees than 90% of people in Brookhaven. I have an 1.5 acre lot with dozens of giant trees on there and a itty bitty piece of grass. So I'm probably one of the most affected people out there. Third, we seem to believe by the comments we've heard tonight that 40 years ago, builders were these amazingly environmentally sensitive guys who saved every tree they could. That is not the case. Trees were cut down to build every house that everybody lives in here. Trees were cut down to build those houses. In my neighborhood, a tree was cut down recently, some 36 inches across, right at the back of the curb. My neighborhood was built in 1968. Trees grow, and they grow very fast. Lastly, we seem to have demonized the concept that someone might, heaven forbid, want some sunlight in their yard, as if all trees must be 100% wooded. Kay, I suspect, can verify this. If you look at aerial photos of Brookhaven in 1950, 1970, 1990, 2010, you will see that it has continually become more covered with green than it was the previous 20 years. That's because homeowners, believe it or not, have enough sense to maintain their own property, Most of them like nice-looking lots. They'll plant trees where they want them, where it works with their community, with their interest and what they want to do with their property. We are not all ignoramuses. I think this is a huge reach to take away private property rights. The community looks beautiful today, and there was no law in the books to make it happen. So as you consider what you're doing now, please give some credence to the point that we're all adults, we all pay taxes, it is our property, and we ought to have some rights to do with it as we wish. And it is a beautiful area, and it happened with no regulation beforehand. And if you see these new beautiful homes going up, most of them have great landscaping going in. And so please consider that. Don't overreach. Keep things to a minimum. Don't create a bureaucracy and a legislation to solve, or as I like to say, this is a solution looking for a problem. As far as people have had problems with drainage and erosion control and dirt and mud, those are legitimate causes. Those are not tree ordinance issues. Those are soil and erosion control issues and grading issues and permit development issues. Those should be regulated and can be regulated under the current law. Thank you for your time and considering my thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Spring.
Lauren Loden.
I hope a tree didn't fall on your foot.
Yeah, that's why I'm here. I just wanted to address that. Hi, I'm Lauren Loden. I live at 2471 East Osborne Road. I'm in Ashford Park, and I am in a new construction home. We have a heavily wooded lot, and I love the trees that we were able to save when we built our home. What I am seeing in the neighborhood, and then I've heard expressed from others here, is that we are losing a sense of canopy and the look and feel of our homes that we are in. And, you know, I love not being able to hear the planes that fly over so much or see birds in my backyard. And I just want to make sure that we keep the integrity of our neighborhood. I do want new construction to continue. I don't want the builders to back out and be scared to build in Brookhaven, because it's increasing our revenue, it's increasing our property value, and I think those are all good things. I just want to make sure that we continue to improve what Kay has put out, and with that, as people have mentioned, I feel like the fines are really not strong enough. And I think there's a balance here. When we're building $850,000 homes on a half-quarter lot or half-acre lot, we're charging the max of $3,000-something for a tree, violation. I really just don't feel like that's going to matter. That's a drop in the bucket for profits. I do want to keep it reasonable, but I don't feel like we're quite there for builders to even consider that to be an issue. And I do believe that each person has their own right for what they want to do in their yard as far as cutting down trees. My concern is that with stream buffers or other buffer areas, how are we going to police that a tree is not removed from a buffer zone when we don't have any protocol in place to say this is the particular tree that we're going to remove in our yard, and what type of action is going to take place there. I do have a stream in my backyard, and we have a buffer zone there that was pretty strict. When we were building our house, for instance, we couldn't go back very far, as much as we wished. But I just want to make sure that the stream, and this goes with erosion and flood zones as well, just to make sure that we're not encroaching on that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
I have a question for staff. Kay, in our permits and applications for tree removal, you require pictures of the lots for what's going to be removed or anything like that?
No, they don't require pictures. They have to actually show a plan showing the entire lot, and the survey has to show all trees over current code requirement, which is 8 inches diameter and over, have to be shown. on the lot where they are. They have to have the concentric circles to show their root zones as well.
So that has to be done by a tree arborist?
Right now, it's not
Or-
required to be done by an arborist. Our new ordinance would require a certified arborist to go out, look at the trees, see what condition they're in, and then put that on the plan.
Okay, thank you.
That'll be an additional cost will be a burden on the contractor.
Correct. Well, yes, they would have to hire, or the surveyor would have to hire a certified arborist to come out.
Anybody else?
I have no additional comment cards.
Okay.
We have a hand up over there.
Oh, yeah. Vic Herrick, if you want to come back up.
You can probably hear me fine, but.
Well,
We need you for the recording, Victor. Victor, can you give us your last name, too, for the record, because this is a part of the minutes?
I stated it earlier. It's
I think
Victor
she missed it.
Herrick.
You got it? Did you get that?
I did state that earlier.
Thank you.
All right. In rebuff to what Kay said about the trees that were planted back on the property that I was discussing, they were all ornamental trees. None of them were hardwoods. They're leyland pines, they're cherry trees, and they're redbud trees. That doesn't constitute a mature canopy of trees. When they grow up, they're going to be no more than maybe 12 to 20 feet tall at their maximum height. They'll strictly be ornamental. They're all short-term trees that typically die within 30 to 40, after they're 30 to 40 years old. So he hasn't made any investment other than it's pretty to look at right now, but he didn't put anything in that's going to do anything for the canopy in the future. Thank you.
Have a discussion up here and the questions with the staff and just read stuff in the record.
I'd like to read just a couple of emails into the record, just because I'd like to give you the sense that we too have heard a lot from constituents, and it's not just the viewpoints of, people here. This is a Brookhaven resident who writes about our daughter and her family have lived in the Candler Park area of city of Atlanta for 14 years, and she writes that the homeowners there have virtually no rights regarding tree removal, even if the trees are diseased or dangerous. You have to get a permit and post your intent for a minimum of 10 days and hope you get a temporary approval and post it to a minimum of 5 days and then hope the arborist agrees with you. Good luck. There was a 5-year waiting period before even attempting to remove the tree again. Bottom line, I trust you folks to make the right decision, et cetera. She obviously thinks that, and I think that those points were confirmed by Kay. I would tell you that the bulk of the emails that I've received have been of this sentiment. I have about 20 trees behind my rear fence that I need to take out. I don't think I should have to register for a permit or to report the activity to anyone. Homeowners should be able to do what they want with the trees on their individual property. If anything, I wish the city was relaxing ordinances versus making ordinances more stringent. And then there was this one from an elderly resident, live on a half-acre lot that mostly consists of very mature trees that are almost too close to each other. It is quite possible that in the near future we will need to thin the lot of some specimen trees for the health of the surrounding specimen trees. There is no place on the lot to replace them that will not further exacerbate the problem. It is not reasonable for a homeowner to pay into the fund in a case like this. There should be an exception process in this process for an owner like this. Several people wrote about that the fines and the requirements. Here it's this one here. This homeowner writes, all this will do is drive builders to the lots that have fewer trees to purchase. One like mine that is heavily treed will just be passed by, so in a very real way, this will cause a reduction of my property values and to my chance of selling my house, which I do not appreciate. It is not a good idea to punish a builder because a specimen tree in the building area, which naturally forces him to cut it down, then is penalized for doing that because he has to pay a large fine, which will once again, wait for it, drive him away from that property. Just to share with you some other sentiments.
I wanted to read a particular email that kind of struck me. It's from Mr. Sprinkle's wife. Should we be penalized because our dreams are not your dreams? If the city's dream is to have more trees, I suggest having a fundraiser for a city tree fund and soliciting volunteers to plant them on city property. Let people who love trees put their money where their mouth is. I know a lot of people are not aware of the details about this ordinance. If asked about trees in general, everyone says they love trees and they hate the clear cutting by developers. However, individual homeowners often don't like trees on their own property for various reasons. When they discover the punitive nature of this ordinance actually applies to them, I think you'll have some very displeased citizens, voters on your hands. So there is I've been going through this ordinance. There are some things in it that I like. There's some things that I don't like. I am concerned about a possible overreach by government in some, especially with a single-family property owner who's living in their home with their property and they want to dispense of their property in the way they see fit. If they want critters and chirping birds in their backyard, they'll have a lot of trees. If they want a nice lawn for their grandkids to play on, they'll have fewer trees and more grass. I think it's kind of a freedom of choice here with people's property. Now, when you start getting into erosion control and doing things to your property that affect your neighbor's property, I think the city has a duty and an obligation to step in there. And I do hear some of the concerns about adding staff to assist K and to assist code enforcement and with erosion control issues, because I do see some of that. When you see a heavy rain and you see silt fencing up and you see mud still going down the street, that bothers me. And that's everywhere you go. It's not just in Brookhaven. You see that everywhere, and I just don't know if there's been a system invented that can stop, once a lot has been cleared or there's development happening, that you can stop all mud runoff. But the concerns about Silver Lake, I'm a member of the Silver Lake Civic Association, and yes, the dredging of lakes is something that you do as a part of lake maintenance. But it was just dredged recently, 3 or 4 years ago. Part of it was dredged. And then before that, it was dredged, 10, 15 years before that. And it seems like it's a little more often with Silver Lake. It's sort of a catch basin for a lot of development. We get runoff coming from the golf course and from other areas. So I'm concerned, and I want to look into our erosion control ordinances and our erosion control enforcement, our erosion control staff levels for land and community development. So that's something this has made me aware of, is the actual damage that's done before the new trees are planted. When you scrape the grass and the trees off, I think there needs to be stricter enforcement, heavier fines for builders and developers who don't follow the regulations when it comes to altering the topography and infringing on the rights of your neighbor's property. That's what I want to say, is that I do have concerns about our ordinance, and if I get to vote on it, I'd probably vote against it. So we'll see what happens, but our tree ordinance. So just because I have concerns about some overreach, I've been
Too much regulation.
Yes. And not enough. In concert with that, I want to revisit our erosion control ordinances and our erosion control staffing. So that's what I wanted to say.
I'd like to point out just a few highlights, because I've worked pretty hard on this, and Kay's given me a lot of her time as well. I just want to make sure people do understand some of the main points. We really have tried to take into consideration sort of rights of homeowners, and then there's actually, I would say, a different standard if you're a developer or, you're a builder. We don't think the real problem is homeowners cutting down their trees. First of all, it's so expensive to take down trees, and that's why we allow that homeowners on single-family homes can remove any trees less than 8 inches as long as they try to keep this 50-inch of diameter density factor. They can remove up to 5 8-inch or larger trees a year, and other than specimen trees. And all we ask them for is really not a permit. It's actually what we're calling a canopy reduction notice. If our intent is really to monitor our canopy of our city, we need to know when people are taking down these over 8-inch trees. So it's really a simple form that we envision, that you it's a simple email that you send to the form is on the city website. You email it and you say, I'm going to take down a few trees here. We think that's not the same as a permit. We're trying to make it not burdensome, not overly regulatory. Now, once you apply for a land disturbance permit, which you have to do if you're going to build a house, or a permit if you're going to build, a whole new system clicks into place. That's where, and I think we have one of the best ordinances here, where it requires that you've got to have this tree survey. You have to document with the arborist certifying it, all trees over 8 inches. And then you have to also submit to the city a tree protection and replacement plan. This has to be approved by the city arborist. And then as the inspectors go out there, they watch all of this along the building. And then if they see a violation, our ordinance says we can impose a stop work order, we can revoke your permit, we can fine you right then, then and there, take you to court. Each fine is $1,000. And then you don't get your certificate of occupancy until you've really fulfilled this tree replacement plan. So hopefully we've now are going to have a better system where we've got eyes on builders and the replanting plans and the protection plans that were really not at all clear in the DeKalb code. Now the specimen trees, we require a little bit extra protection because those are the big overstory trees that really provide the canopy that all of us enjoy and understand what an asset that is. So if you take down a specimen tree, we do want you to let us know because we want to know about it. And then you do have to replace it inch for inch. And you can do that if you're like Ron Sprinkle and you already have a lot of trees on your lot, or you're like me, I've got a lot of trees in my backyard. It shouldn't be a problem on many of our wooded lots. But we are asking for an inch by inch replacement of that. And if you can't replant or you don't have enough room, then you do pay, and it's $125 per inch. Now that ain't cheap. And so that's why we've capped it for builders at $62,000. I don't think that's any, small fine or small amount to pay into the tree fund. We're also doing some good things, which I wish we could even go back in retrospect. I may ask legal if we can go back and look at parking lots, for instance, that are old parking lots that are just hot pavement with no trees. We now require that you've got to have a tree planted for every 8 spaces. Now, you know that when in the summer, when you get out of your car or you get in your car, it is so hot. So just having these trees that provide a canopy in the asphalt is particularly important and precious. I mean, I wish we could go back to our old parking lots and impose this. We're also requiring developers plant street trees every 35 feet when you've got a large development. A lot of these tree ordinances don't require that. So that's going to go a long way to making sure that we continue to have a community with these beautiful tree-lined streets. I mean, we all love the streets where the canopies, are reaching over. Again, I think we've included some very strong penalties. I think we're serious about this. But I want to make sure that we've got an ordinance that both people can understand and that we can enforce. DeKalb's ordinance wasn't that bad, but there was no enforcement. So we're not gonna. I don't want us to pass an ordinance that takes a cavalry to go out and be watching everybody cutting down trees, and you've got to have this permit system. And this system that Atlanta has, to me, is just crazy, where you've got to have all these appeals, and your neighbors can come tell you whether you can cut your tree down or not. To me, is just so over the top. So I'm not for no regulation, although I will tell you, Dunwoody has passed their ordinance to say, homeowner, you can cut down as many trees as you want. Don't ask for permission. I think we want to monitor our canopy a little bit closer than that, but we also want to respect the fact that people own their property, they own the trees, and legally, if they want to build a house or a swimming pool, they have a right to do that. And if they want a garden in the back, they have a right to do that. So let's not be overly restrictive. Let's not turn into a nanny state, and let's not add all kinds of cost of regulations to the city that are simply unnecessary. So I'm quite proud of this tree ordinance, and I would encourage my fellow councilmen to pass it.
Thank you, Rebecca. I want to say, before you start, I want to say one more thing. I just want to say thank you to you, Rebecca, and to Kay, and to staff, and Bennett, and everybody that's been involved. And there are some things that I like about this ordinance, and it's just I have some reservations about some aspects of it, but I appreciate the work that you've done. I do think it is a better ordinance in DeKalb counties, which is what we set out to do, I believe. And you know, my reservations are, and we've talked about this before, about how do we distinguish between a single-family homeowner and somebody who's coming in to develop. It's just, I just don't know if we've gotten that distinction. Maybe we can amend it later or do some.
But I think we do, because once you apply for a permit, a whole different series of regulations kick in.
Right.
If you, Mayor Davis, want to cut down a tree in your yard, you can. But if you want to add a swimming pool that is going to cause you to cut down, all of a sudden you're going to come under the, you know, the eagle eye of not only Kay, but Bennett and, you know, the other people who review plans. And there's a whole series of watching you, monitoring you, inspecting you, and making sure you're keeping to your plan.
Right.
I had a question for Kay about the boundary trees. So what notice does a neighbor have about the boundary trees, and if they're even outside of the property that is subject for the redevelopment? And
I'm sorry,
yeah, go
under
ahead.
the new ordinance, the applicant wanting to build a new home or add a swimming pool, whatever it would be, under construction, to submit a plan would have to notify the adjoining property owner in writing that the CRZ, or the critical root zone of a boundary tree, may be disturbed, and that if the tree should thereafter be damaged or die due to construction impacts, it will be handled as a civil matter. They have to notify that owner by certified or certificate of mailing, so that we have proof that they were notified of that letter saying that this is our intent.
Right.
So that's something that's in our ordinance that wasn't in DeKalb's ordinance.
Exactly.
That's a great section there.
And also, with respect to if there's a land disturbance permit issued, they would have to have the arborist do a tree
Right,
plan
on
for
their
themselves.
plan, they have to show the critical root zone, and
Everything
that
in.
includes the root plate of the boundary tree. And they have to
Okay.
protect it.
And are those trees presumed to be in good health if they're on the arborist?
The way it reads in the ordinance is that they just do a visual look at the tree, that the certified arborist that goes out for the applicant
Right.
has to pick up those boundary trees, and if they see anything glaring, then they would let, you know, I'm sure that would be included in the letter. You know,
Okay.
it has a giant hollow cavity or whatever they find.
Good. Thank you. My comments on this is that, yes, as Rebecca and the staff and all the other council members and the mayor have spent a tremendous amount of time listening to public comments and trying to do the best job that we possibly can to develop a tree ordinance which is respectful of property owners' rights and also protects the trees and the tree canopy in Brookhaven. So thank you for all the hard work on this. I think we've come a very long way, and it is difficult to have ordinances applied to every single situation, but I think we've done a really good job of developing from what was the original DeKalb County ordinance that we're currently under. And a lot of the issues that I hear people complain about in these pictures that we've seen tonight presented to us and the stories that we've heard emailed, most of those situations would be corrected once we get this ordinance in place. So, thanks very much.
Could you also just clarify too, to Mr. Herrick's point about just having the ornamental trees? I believe our ordinance requires that when you plant back, you've got to have a mix of overstory and understory trees.
Correct. It is a mixture of overstory and understory trees. The Leland cypress can get up to 50 to 70 feet, depending on, if they get the nutrient value and everything that they need.
There's no prohibition against planting ornamental trees in addition to.
No,
Right.
and actually, the red buds are native. They're not ornamental. It's a native understory tree that gets up to 30 to 40 feet in height. So it's a mixture that we want to see back on the lots, because that's what nature would do. You know, the seeds would go, and we would have a mixed forest. So.
I think one of the things that I've come to appreciate that Kay has stressed is really keeping a healthy urban forest. And that requires this combination of overstory and understory trees and a variety of species and a certain preference given to native species, and also careful pruning, because you've got to thin the forest at certain points too to let the trees grow and thrive and get rid of the weak ones. We also are seeing many of our beautiful trees reaching the end of their life cycle. And so we are going to see diseased or weakened trees, and certainly, you add that to the various droughts and then whatever, the weather vagaries that we have, our large trees will come down. And we need to understand that. And so we just need to be mindful that we can't save every 100-year-old tree. And what we need to be doing is planting more younger trees so that we're constantly renewing the forest.
Correct.
Marie, Marie, I had asked you previously if you could have a member of your staff this evening present to us what is at risk with what we have with our current ordinance versus what our current or revised pending ordinance here would address. Do you have anybody that can do that?
I think both Kay and Susan could address that,
I'd like to
beginning
hear
with Kay.
Yeah, basically, so you're wanting a comparison between if we approve or don't approve? Is that what
We're
I'm
looking
hearing?
at situations like this, right? And we're existing under this.
Okay, yeah.
And we're confronted with a situation here where, obviously, this is an emotional issue, varying degrees. We're looking at repeated requests for moratoriums. We're looking at, we're operating under this umbrella right now. I want to know, we're looking at passing a potential ordinance this evening. What is at risk with what we have now versus what we could be addressing satisfactorily with the pending ordinance?
Okay, I think I can answer that for you. Basically, at this point in the game, if we stay with DeKalb County's existing ordinance that we adopted, we will still have to issue a warning notice to violators who illegally remove trees before we can issue a court summons and give them option to replant. That's what the current code and ordinance says under enforcement. Any person, firm, or corporation violating any of the provisions of this section after having first been issued a warning. Then we can issue whatever we need to issue. So they can cut the trees down. I can't go out and issue an immediate court summons like I could under the new ordinance. I'd have to issue a warning first and say, you've cut these down illegally. You have until X date to provide a plan of recompense and show me how you're going to plant back these trees. And then if you fail to do that, then I'm going to issue a court summons. Is basically what it boils down to. Under the current ordinance, private property owners can continue to remove 5 trees per calendar year, not including specimens, with no requirement at all for maintaining canopy. So technically, if you had no specimens on a lot and you only had 5 trees remaining, you could remove them and have no trees on the lot at all. And if our goal is to preserve canopy, that is something that we want to try and at least maintain some canopy on each lot, which the new ordinance would do. There are no incentives right now in the current tree ordinance for builders and developers to use any type of green infrastructure, such as those rain gardens and bioretention facilities, to stop runoff where they have to remove trees. There's only a requirement for water quality, and that treats the water on a lot for pollutants from roof runoff and pavement in canisters and things like that is what they usually choose that option. But that only kicks in for over a 5,000 square foot lot build. So most of our lots most of the houses built here are not 5,000 square feet. So they're not even required water quality. So that's one thing that the new ordinance will do and give that incentive for them to use those type things in with what they do versus the existing ordinance, which has no incentive. So, that's pretty much where it is right now. I think this proposed ordinance is 10 times better than the existing ordinance, in my opinion.
Susan, do you have any comment?
I don't think I have anything to add further to that from what Kay shared with you. We did discuss that at length today. At risk is that we do believe the ordinance that is proposed is better. We can continue to operate under the one we have. We feel that the one that has been drafted is better. And if at some later point you feel that additional changes need to be made, we could certainly amend it again. But from a staff perspective, we feel like what's been presented to you and what has been amended
and all the public comments that have been included, we feel like what we have here before you tonight, and it is in a position to be adopted, and we can implement it, and we feel like it's better for the city.
Okay, council?
Yes.
I'm going to make a recommendation. Regardless of how the vote goes tonight, we obviously have a situation where here, do we have a problem? Yeah, there are problems. Could we do a better job? Definitely. I think that what we were trying to do here as council was to basically replicate what we did with the stream buffer. It was a very open forum. We did certainly a lot more public hearings, et cetera, above and beyond what we were required to do to make sure we had adequate input. And every time we sit down and we get to a meeting like this, and we always seem to inch forward a little bit better than we did the time before, and I believe that's being acknowledged. Not quite sure we're there yet. So what I'd like to recommend we do as a council is that we consider putting together a citizen commission, and we have it be 5 people, 1 from each of the 4 districts. Mayor has the right to appoint 1 person, and make this a work in progress. This should not be an ordinance that, regardless of whenever it's passed, be set at that particular time and not have undergone, I think, scrutiny of a group of people that can come to consensus on a lot of issues. And I can think of a bunch of them right now. Several of them have kept coming up tonight. We're looking at things like enforced enhancement, carrot versus the stick approach, which I don't think that, I'm not satisfied we really reached the maximum potential on that one there. Maintaining integrity of neighborhoods using our new comprehensive plan and the characters that we have assigned for neighborhoods. Looking at credits again for the low-income housing areas, doing the dead tree ordinance, enhancing enforcement, and letting this group of people really help fine-tune this for us, and continue a public public involvement on a very constructive recommendation base for council.
Any more discussion on this?
I would just say that I think we've had more public hearings on this issue than any that we've had so far. I mean, I think we've heard from hundreds of people. We've hired a consultant. We spent 6 months reviewing other ordinances. Community development team has been spending months on it. Some of us have been spending months on it. I just don't know what else we can do. I'm ready to pass this now.
Let me add to that. I think that the biggest issue that I think that we need to consider is where are we today and what do we have before us. We know what we have today has some defects in the ordinance, and we're moving towards a more protective tree ordinance, which has been well thought out and well hashed. It may not be perfect, but I do like the idea, Joe, of bringing citizens into this and saying, look, let's analyze this over the next 90 days. But I do think that tonight we need to go ahead and move forward with this ordinance, because we know that it is substantially better in a number of ways. And I think to do nothing for 90 days would continue the problems we're already.
I'm saying regardless of the outcome, I just want to make sure this stays a work in progress.
I think it should.
I think that's a given.
Yeah.
Okay, well, and I'm trying to propose a format that would do it.
We'll work on doing something like we'll work on that.
Thank you.
All right, any more discussion from council? All right.
Mayor Davis?
Yes.
If I may, and members of the council, there is one additional comment that I would like to make based on this proposed draft ordinance, and it's reflected on page 14 in item 7C. It reflects Chapter 17 of the code, and I would just like to
hang on. Let me get there first, real quick. Page 14, 7C, buffers, right?
Yes. It reflects Chapter 17, and I would just like to note that should instead reflect Chapter 27 of the code on that page.
So any motion has to have that amendment in there. Okay.
Correct.
Amended as stated by attorney, city attorney.
Okay, clerk's got it.
All right, anything else? All right. Call for the closing of the public hearing, public comment section. Next, the call for the question. All right. Is there a motion?
I'd like to move that we approve ordinance 2014-07-07, consideration and approval of an ordinance to amend Chapter 14, Land Development of the Code of the City of Brookhaven, Georgia, to replace Article 11 entitled Environmental Controls, Section 14 through 37, the tree ordinance.
Your second?
With
with
an amendment in Section 7 under buffers.
Page 426.
Page 14?
Page 14.
Page 14.
14.
Be changed to, instead of Chapter 17, be Chapter 27, as stated by the city attorney.
Is there a
second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor of adopting the ordinance signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the ordinance is adopted.
We allowed comment after the vote?
Sure.
I just want to say, I think the current version is a definite improvement over the old. I do, and I'm very, very committed to this needs to be a work in progress, and there needs to be ongoing work that I think can be brought to us to yet improve this.
All right. Next.
The next item is consideration and approval of the Brookhaven Comprehensive Transportation Plan, and this is available for public comment. Right. And Jamie Cochran with Gresham is available to make a presentation.
Actually, what is this presentation going to be different from the one you made last time?
It's a shorter version, Mr. Mayor.
Shorter is the operative word.
Let me just tell you where we are right now and then take the cue from you all on what you would like to do. We were here 2 weeks ago to give you our very first presentation on the draft plan and the recommended list of programs and projects that were part of the plan, and we did get 24 comments and questions. We've, since that time, worked with Richard Meehan, your Director of Public Works, to address those comments and questions. We did have one substantive change in the document, which has to do with an error that we found. I think Mr. Gebbia identified a problem with some data on West Nancy Creek Drive. Or
Rebecca.
Ms. Williams, sorry. So we have corrected that. There is no proposed project that corresponds with that corridor because the data that was shown in the draft was incorrect. We did clean up the draft a little bit to make it more user-friendly and more understandable. The presentation tonight focuses on the proposed improvements and gives a little bit more clarification about what the purpose of the CTP is as really an initial starting point as a new city to get you moving towards the other subsequent steps for identifying transportation solutions. We didn't have a whole lot of time to have an informal discussion about how the different stages of the planning and engineering process works to try to get projects implemented. So we did insert a few slides in there. I'm happy to go through those if you'd like. If you'd rather just get comments, that's fine too, whatever you would like to do tonight.
I had a question. Have you spoken with Mr. Pilati, or have you gotten any input from recently?
Yes. Okay. We stay in close touch. And
are any of his recent suggestions, have they made their way into the plan?
We've been talking with him. There has been some discussion about how to move specific projects forward that were of high interest to the city council and to you, Mr. Mayor. Once we get a better indication of the direction you all would like to go, then we can get some more detailed information to help you go in that direction.
Okay. All right.
So however you would like to address that, either through Mr. Pilati or Richard or both, we'd be happy to work with you on that.
Yeah, so I don't think we're ready to adopt this plan tonight. It's just-
I didn't think you were, but I just wanted to
Right.
leave that open if there's
Yeah, if you-
additional information that you would like to exchange.
Okay. Did you have some more comments?
No, just we're up over 1,100 public comments, and we understand that you are interested in adding to that. We have maintained the project document since the very start of the project. That's about 5 months ago.
Right.
So we feel really confident that we're trying to do as much as we can to get public outreach, but we're willing to incorporate any additional ones that you would like to include.
Okay. Turning lanes, more turning lanes.
We've got that. That's one of the most highest, the highest rated community recommendation that came through the outreach process.
Expansion of turning lanes and adding of turning lanes.
Improving intersections, specifically with turn lanes, and also coordinating traffic signals to try to make the flow of traffic more efficient through corridors.
Okay, all right. Anybody else have any questions or comments? All right, Rebecca?
No, I think we're just anxious to start taking the next steps in terms of really addressing these problems. I think you've done a terrific job of really giving us this 30,000-foot view and collecting an enormous amount of data and input, which will be invaluable as we go forward. But, you know, folks in District 1 want to know what we're doing about the traffic on Ashford Dunwoody tomorrow.
And
so.
I certainly understand, and we appreciate your comment about the plan. Your staff has been great to work with, and moving transportation projects along is a pretty complex business. It doesn't happen overnight, but we're happy to help do whatever we can do to help you to make that happen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Public comment on this?
Betsy Eggers.
Hi, thank you. I'm Betsy Eggers, 1408 Tuggaloo Drive, and it's great to be here tonight talking about the transportation plan, and I just wanted to point out 3 things about it that are pretty significant that I hope you consider. Number 1, and of course this has to do with the North Fork Linear Park, as always, yay. On page 4 of the active transportation projects for bikes, pedestrians, and trail projects, there is listed AT7, which is the South Fork of Peachtree Creek Trail. It's listed as a high priority, and it's suggested for fiscal year 09 to 14. And it's not in the city limits. But the good news is when you take that out, which is a high priority, you can make the North Fork of Peachtree Creek, which is in the city limits, a high priority, because right now it's only medium, and there's no suggested budget year for it. And that concerns us of the North Fork. We think that there should be a budget year. It should be right away, and we should get that going.
Okay.
That's 2. The third thing is this concern that I have, figure 6-7, which shows proposed trails service area analysis. And if this is what we're going to be doing for the next 20 years of where trails and bike trails should be in the city, the whole central part of it is white, meaning, from what I can tell, the whole central area of the city, 1/3 of it, is not going to have any plans for bike trails at all. So this seems like a big gap, and I hope that that is addressed very quickly and as it should be. This is a long-term plan, so get everything in there that we need now. Thank you very much.
Betsy, you are aware that Steve Clark from the League of the American Bicyclists is coming to Brookhaven. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Of course.
But say it.
Yeah, well,
Go
he's
ahead,
coming
say it.
on Wednesday, the 22nd, for a presentation here to council from 1 to 4. And that's going to be a key part of.
I would suggest that Ed McBrayer should also be here.
It's been moved to the
Path
morning, is that what
Foundation.
you're?
It's in the process of being moved to the morning of
Right.
that day.
Do you know what time in the morning it's going to be moved to?
8 to 12.
8 a.m. to 12?
Something like 9 to 12.
Well, it's still going to be on the 22nd, time to be confirmed.
Right. That's
Okay.
what I've asked for, that he confirm it, he gets a response
Uh,
to all the emails.
That's a great idea. We'll make sure we extend an invitation to Ed McBrayer from
Ed
PATH to
McBrayer.
attend.
I believe it's going to be set up as a public meeting, and that he will be making presentations with pictures and ideas, and then I think there may be a bike ride
Betsy,
around
did
the neighborhood after this.
I think I saw an email from y'all, you to someone, and are y'all calling yourself Norfolkers? What's the word y'all are using for yourself?
Our name is North Fork Connectors, Inc.
But I saw somebody make a
North Forkers?
North
Yeah.
Forker.
Do you have a problem?
No, I didn't have.
You want to change it?
No, I think that's good. So is that your?
It's not copyrighted. If you wanted to use that for yourself, you can.
Who made that up?
I would just like to shorten.
Oh, so you, all right.
That's he wants the bumper sticker.
We think the first restaurant overlooking the North
Should be
Fork
called
Linear
North
Park
Forker?
should be called the North Fork.
North Forkers Barbecue.
Porkers.
North Porkers.
Porkers. This is just going downhill.
To 9 to 1:30. 9 at 1.
Okay, so Joe's just clarified, the time is 9 a.m. until 1:30 p.m.
22nd of October.
Okay, great, thanks, Joe.
Sorry. Where are we?
Sorry, this is the Parks plan, not.
Oh. Yeah. Threw you under the bus, big time there, didn't she? All right. All right.
Still needs to be corrected.
Any more public comment on that? Okay. So we'll close the public comment. Action items, so I can't recommend anything. I'll go ahead. An action item.
Can I ask a question first? Yeah, if we defer this, Marie, what would be a defer to the next city council meeting?
Yeah.
Is that a good date?
We have the comprehensive plan scheduled for September the 9th, and it was our understanding that all of the plans would move to September the 9th for your consideration and determination. The comp plan is scheduled to move forward and be transmitted to the Department of Community Affairs. So the other three, you could act on them that night, or you
Defer
could
'em.
wait.
No, if we're not, feel like they're ready.
Defer it to that
Yeah.
then, and if we need to
Yeah.
defer it again, we
Is there
can.
a motion?
Yeah, and look-
If I could just add just a comment for you all to consider as we get to the September 9th meeting. While there are no deadline timeframes for these three remaining plans, Beaufort Highway, Parks and Recreation, and the transportation, different from our comprehensive plan because we do have a mandate by our charter and our incorporation to get all of that done. There is a reliance on the comprehensive plan to all of the three remaining plans, and in particular, the transportation component. The Department of Community Affairs does expect to have an approved transportation component. So I would.
When?
It would need to be during the time of adoption,
So
if
the-
not leading up to the
Okay.
adoption of the comprehensive plan.
So the 30 to
Because-
60 day?
Right.
Okay.
You're going to transmit in September. We're going to receive that back in November. We're planning for a public hearing in November. So it's my hope.
I don't think it'll take that long for the
Right.
other three.
And I'm just mentioning that. So if you're looking at September 9th for
Deferral?
more time,
Mhm.
I would not want to go more than 30 days from that
Okay,
date.
all right. Noted. No, thank you.
One of the things that I was just going to bring up is that at the District 3 Town Hall event that we had last night, there were a number of great recommendations and concerns that were brought up about all the plans. The comprehensive plan, I don't think we had any comments on it, but the other ones, there were definitely some things that I'd like to include or address with council about making changes. And so, whether we defer to September 9th, I think we still want to solicit these comments from
Right.
our citizens. And as we talked about it last night, these really will be somewhat living documents. I think that they're not the hard, fast rule of what we have to do over the next 20 years, but
Right.
they're planning documents to help us, guide us in the right direction.
They are, and I want to, and that's a perfect segue, if you will allow me, on each of those plans. They include work programs. And so another thing to think about, first of all, the work programs get amended annually because whether it's the comprehensive plan for the short-term work program, which is a 5-year plan, you work on 2015, and when we reach the end of 2015, that drops off and we're adding a new year. So you always will be reviewing that and amending that and approving that. The other point I want to make about those work programs, I mentioned earlier in our meeting tonight that we're in the budget season. We're coming back in a few weeks with the department heads. We're going to start working on the budget intently for the 2015. We still have a retreat coming up where you're going to be joining the department heads as they make their presentations in concert with your vision and mission. Those work plans are budgeting tools for your city manager, as well as you're setting priorities of what you want for the 2015 budget cycle. So I'm going to, if you'll allow me to remind you again about that so that we don't get so far out and we cannot move forward on our budget because we don't know where we stand with the priorities of the council. So
Just want to announce one thing, that September 4th, that's next Thursday at 4 o'clock
PM.
here, will be the steering committee and the public's opportunity to weigh in on the comprehensive, on the parks plan. You can weigh in on other plans too, but specifically the parks plan. So, because I've been hearing not just from people in Bates's district, but all over the city that there are some things they want to address in that plan. Not a lot of stuff, but there are some very specific things, and I want to make sure that the public has the opportunity to they've been a great resource for us because, you know, we get snowed under with documents sometimes on you know, our agenda packages can be huge, and we get to most everything, but when you have citizens who are, their one concern is maybe the parks, and they're not really looking or reviewing anything else, it really is helpful to have citizens who have gone through things with a fine-tooth comb and letting us know this is here, this is there, this is an issue for me, or so I really am appreciative of the citizenry's hyper scrutiny of some of these things. You know, you can overdo that sometimes, but I think it's helpful. So we want to encourage more of that. Mike, if we can send an e-blast out to the I know the committee has been notified, but an e-blast to folks about that meeting and also about the adoption of the comprehensive plan on September 9th to get us any more comments before then as well. Just let folks know that they can come by City Hall on Mondays with the mayor, or they can call their council members to meet with them, and they can send in emails or call us too about issues or concerns they have with the comp plan.
What was the time on the 4th?
I know, I'm
4
doing
o'clock.
4 o'clock?
Right.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just make one point of edification, please. On September the 9th, the council is not adopting the comprehensive plan.
We're going to transmit it.
You are transmitting it by resolution. So the public will continue to have opportunity for input during that review period by the state.
Okay.
And when it comes back in November for your consideration to adopt, even that night, you can still make some changes to it and incorporate any of the further comments.
Okay.
During that time of review with the state, we're going to still be capturing citizen comments because we'll want to report that to you as well during that evening.
Thank you.
I would just like to add, on top of what Marie just said, that these are they're important documents. They are 20-year documents, but they're not ordinances.
Right.
And so they are making recommendations. And what I am really anxious to get going on is to start having discussions among us about what are the projects that we do next?
Right.
What are the recommendations that we're going to go ahead and fund?
Right.
And that's what Maria is talking about with the budget season coming up as well. So I'm happy to talk about the plan some more, but in my mind, we've been talking about them since this spring. I really want us to move forward and start acting and fixing our roads and buying playgrounds and putting up new signs in the parks and all the, we have so much on our plate to do, and I'd rather us move on to those discussions. That's my wish.
Yes. Is there a motion?
Where is it? I'll move that we defer the approval of the Brookhaven Comprehensive Transportation Plan until our next city council meeting on September 9th.
Is there a second? All right, any discussion? All in favor of deferral signify so by saying aye.
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 All opposed? All right. All right, we can skip A, I guess, Parks and Recreation Master Plan. So we've talked about that, we can do the same thing there. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we
Defer consideration.
Blanked out on, it's getting late.
We didn't have
Defer
public-
the.
Gotta have public comment on that.
Are y'all going
Oh, we do need to have public comment?
to, public comment,
public comment.
presentation, anything?
Yeah.
Presentation first?
Is there any public comment on the parks plan?
Yes, I think
There
there
is?
is.
Okay, sorry, we'll cut somebody out of being able to talk.
I know, but the presentation.
Comment first or presentation?
Yeah, is there a presentation first? No presentation? There is presentation?
I'll keep it very brief.
Okay.
And he was still back there.
Like the previous speaker, I made a very long, hour-long presentation. Couple of comments I want to make. First, I congratulated Jerry. I thought this was wonderful. It's in our plan. This is exactly what's in our plan that says you need to start programming. You've got facilities, start using them. I was tickled pink to see this. I am going to give you a handout that is a very brief summary. I'm not going to go over it of the master plan findings, but it's the grouping that is important that I want to speak to you about just for 5 minutes.
When you presented before, you had a map of...
Your microphone.
When you presented before, you showed us just a proposed draft of a plan for Murphy Candler and maybe Blackburn. I don't see those, and I've tried to find those.
They're in the master plan report. There are 4. We did Murphy Candler, Linwood Park, Blackburn. They're not in this handout. They're in the...
But I printed out the plan.
They're in the appendix. They should be in the appendix.
All right, now I'm going to look through it and see.
Okay, well, we can resend them out if somehow they missed. But the real keys I wanted to touch on, because I know the importance of public comment to you. We had 1,066 surveys responded, and I've passed out some of the key survey findings. I think that's, as an elected body, the public input section is something you really ought to read closely. The staffing recommendations, we've worked with Jerry since he's been hired and modified the org chart from the preliminary plan to the final plan. Table 6.3 is the standards. It tells you where you have facility deficits and surpluses. That's an important chart for you guys to look at. Okay. And then obviously the funding section, we talked about various ways you could approach pulling together the funding to do the packet. So, and the last thing, we also have a trails map in there. You're 14 miles short of trails. Your deficit is 14 miles, and we have recommended 13.5 miles of trails in the master plan. So we've given you routes that we think are doable routes in the master plan. But you're love to hear that you're working on the community centers. They need a lot of love. That's noted in the plan. You've already got funding in place, and you've started. So I commend you for everything you're already doing, and if you have any questions, I'll take them.
I have 2 questions. One first is just a quick comment to Marie that I heard that someone said the Parks and Rec plan that we have posted on our steering committee webpage doesn't have the appendix, all of the appendixes to it, so we may have a smaller version of it.
We can double check that.
Yeah.
I do not see the...
Okay.
We'll if Susan doesn't have them, we'll retransmit them.
We'll just, we'll double check that. The second comment is about the comment that Betsy made a little earlier on District 2. It's on the proposed trail service area analysis. We've got this blank area that doesn't have the shaded trail service area. Now, where's the love for District 3? That is all of District 3, and I assure you, District 3 is very interested in trails, and so it's something that,
okay,
perhaps we can take a look at that, and I'd be happy to sit down with you and
absolutely
maybe some of the people in that area.
If you have ideas for additional, we're glad to add more.
Great, thanks.
I would also point out on that same map, because it keeps popping up in all the maps, about this proposed trail in Area 1. I know that it came probably from the DeKalb transportation plan, and somebody's got this idea for a trail. I'm here to tell you that goes through my backyard. And all of this is private property. And it's just astounding to me. Now, it does go along a creek. Right here.
Burgundy.
And I'm, me and my neighbors are kind of shocked that nobody has said anything to us about, building a trail in our backyards, and it's all private property, so I don't know who.
We have not received
whose idea this is.
That came from a compilation of previous trail master
It's
plans.
this problem of you get one thing and it keeps getting handed down to the next person, and I'm just
I
here
will
to tell you.
take those trails. You can move them down into that area too there.
Well, you want them through your backyard?
Yeah.
Okay, well, put them in Bates's backyard.
We welcome the comment, and but we have not gotten any comments like that about this map from any emails or anything, so. Okay.
I had a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
The staffing, operations, and budget. I'm looking on this page, table 4.3. It's showing Brookhaven with 6 full-time employees and the staffing operating as 59% of the operating budget.
Yes, sir.
Besides Decatur, we're the highest percentage of staffing taking up our operating budget. Do we have 6 employees for the city employees for parks?
Funded positions.
Are they contractors or are they?
We have the Parks Director,
Right.
we have the Assistant Director, we have the Athletics Coordinator, we have a Program Coordinator, so that's 4. We have Raquel, the Administrative Assistant, and we have a part-time employee. So, yes.
But you're proposing a lot bigger
No, it's
in the
6.
future.
It's showing 6 here.
It's actually 5.5, but showing 6 slots.
Yeah, as you grow, yes, sir.
As you grow.
Dunwoody has 1.
Dunwoody is, Mr. Mayor, is the anomaly. You notice, these are metrics, and I'm glad you picked up on that. It's 59% of your operating budget, 55.8 of Alpharetta and Roswell, and 62% of Decatur.
Right.
So you're not outside the norm spending 59% of your operating budget on staff. And actually, you're doing pretty well, I think, compared to Dunwoody, who has 1 park, and we did their study. They have 1 contract employee who's a full-time employee, and the rest are, everything is contract maintenance, contract trash collection, contract everything. So it doesn't really, their cost doesn't really reflect in their operational budget because it's not in Parks and Rec. They only assign 1 person to Parks and Rec budget. So it's just so you understand, they're spending a lot more than what's accounted for in their Parks and Rec budget.
Yeah, just a little surprised to see what looks like 5.5 or 6 employees in our Parks Department when we're, we want our directors to be the city employees, and we want to do as much contracting as possible. I just a little bit surprising to me.
Yeah, I think you're.
I know about a couple of these, but I just didn't realize they're.
Right. But as you go forward, I think your opportunity for part-time, like all these programs, these will all be carried out by part-time staff and.
I see that.
So, now, to be honest, we did recommend that your senior staff be city employees, not contract employees.
We know that, yeah, the director of each department is, we're kind of following the model that those will all be city employees, but not so much when you get down the chain.
Yes, sir. But that's what you have.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Y'all see anything else in here? Our population was wrong on the table 4.5. It's 55,000 people.
51?
55 is showing.
Yeah, it's showing 55, but
Right, we're 51.
Right.
Anybody have any
I
comments?
like optimistic thinking, though.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's a traffic problem.
All right. Yeah.
Hey.
All right.
Watch yourself.
Is there a motion or no public comment?
No, we do.
We do have some? All right.
Tim Nama.
Tim who?
Tim Nama, 1853 Duke Road, Brookhaven, Georgia.
If those are exhibits, you need to give them to the clerk.
No, these are my notes. But I will give an exhibit in a second. I wanted to make a couple comments on the parks plan. I think it's got a lot of good long-range potential to it. But I was very happy to hear Rebecca's comment about, it's time to get some things in action now. I would also like to request that you wait on making a decision on the long-range plan until District 2 has elected a representative. I don't think it's fair to our district to be penalized for not having representation on the council currently. The most damning part of the report that I read was that over 75% of our residents are utilizing parks in neighboring cities because the park facilities that we have now are just not up to snuff. And it's time to make some improvements in our parks. That was one of the promises that every one of us made when we were pitching cityhood to all of our friends and neighbors, that we were going to have useful parks that were safe and updated, and that we'd all be proud to use. And I think that that's something that it's time to get in action. I have a specific list of requests for District 2 parks in our city. I have a copy for each of you. I don't know if I need to give it to you or give it to Susan.
Let her see them, and then she'll bring them to us.
All right. I appreciate your time, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Council will need to take at least one and make a couple of copies for the clerk and myself.
Does she not have one?
No,
Okay.
and I don't have one either.
I'm not going to give up mine.
Well, we'll just make a copy of one of yours.
You can make a
Somebody
copy of
can-
mine.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Madison.
All right, any more public comment?
Betsy Eggers?
I know. Sorry. This is what I'm waking up at night worrying about, and that is that we may choose the wrong portion of the North Fork to build as our trial mile. And so I want you all to start thinking about this. Of the 3 miles of the linear park, when you look at where they built the belt line first, of that whole thing, that 2.5 miles that they put in goes from Inman Park to Piedmont Park. And it's safe, there's lots of people to populate it, and it's going to be successful. People can't wait for the rest of it to be built. When you look at the Buford Highway plan, and they're talking about building the linear park of the trial mile behind a place where there's homeless, it's run down, there's no population to populate it, it may not be successful unless you pick the right spot to do the first trial mile, because you want it to have population and to be popular and to be safe. So just start thinking about that, of where the first place should be. Let's get other people involved that have looked at it and are looking at it in a marketing perspective, and not just, ooh, this is low-hanging fruit because this is a beat-up looking place because it's where the honey baked ham is, or the Suntan Plaza. You got to look at where it's going to connect and go all the way up to someplace else, and where it's going to be crossing over the river or not having to cross, because each time you cross, it's going to be expensive to build bridges. So just let's get the overall plan and then pick where it's going to be the most successful. I don't know where that is, but I just want to give you that thing to think about.
And the trial doesn't have to be a mile, right?
No, but she's making a good point, and that is this, and it's called out for in the Buford Highway Plan, the Parks and Recreation Plan, the Transportation Plan, looking at alternative modes of transportation, one being a trail. What we need to do, and her point is, we need to create the overall trail plan. And then from there, look at where we can accommodate access to the trail and where it can be safe and it can be heavily used, because we want a good demonstration of that so that we can get other partners to come on board and then to extend that. Now, is it a mile? Is it probably not? but we can show the first mile as the first segment and build it in pieces. And, we're going to be looking for partnerships. It's not all going to be on the city's dime. There are other venues and entities out there that we can tap into, and we do plan to do that. But we need the overall plan first. It's going to be very important, and we need to make the statement that the trail along the creek right now is privately owned, just as Ms. Williams said about another trail in her district. So not only is that privately owned, but the points of access to the trail are also privately owned. So this demands a partnership. But we can't sell the idea until we have a plan so we can show property owners how it's accessed and how they can be a participant in it.
Marie, I think you're making arrangements to have an upcoming meeting with Ed McBrayer at Path. And
Yes, I have called him, and I'm waiting for his return call, in fact.
I think that's an invaluable asset to help us ascertain, as we go through planning this path, how we might want to look at where that first portion is.
Well,
I think he's already been down this road. That's why I think it's
correct. And again, part of the budgeting process of what I'll be coming back to you on and asking you to set priorities, and I would think this would be a very high priority on your list. We need to have the overall plan. It's not just laying out the line of the trail, it's the cross sections. What does it look like? What are the dimensions? What are the specs to build it? And then what is the maintenance plan? But the points of access are critical because we can't helicopter into the trail. So, and I don't want us to be reliant on just one source of funding or one entity. There are opportunities for others, and it looks good, from our standpoint to try and bridge a couple of those entities together and then show what we're going to be investing in it. It makes our applications much stronger.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Betsy.
Thanks so much, Marie.
All right. Any more public comments?
Corey Self.
Lori. Yeah. Like the sandals.
Good evening. I will attempt to be short. Have just a couple points. I've not yet had a chance to read the entire report. I started reading through it today and spent far too much of my time and far too little time working. But I did have a couple concerns that came up. One, I was shocked at the chart in there that showed the lowest spend per capita of all of the comparison cities. When we, I did not write down what chart that was. Maybe our consultant could help us out. But
it was $5.30, $17.
I believe it was $17, and they said the median across Georgia was $77 per capita.
Ours will be higher.
I was shocked that it was as low as it is. I know that DeKalb County only spent $300,000, $400,000 maintaining the parks, and I understand that we've got significantly more than that at roughly $2.5 million, including capital improvements. Still, I would think that we would want to invest in our parks heavily enough that we would not fall out at the lowest per capita. I was also shocked at the emphasis on, or maybe it was my perceived emphasis on the involvement of the steering committee for the parks. I know over half of the committee personally. I've talked with several of the members. My understanding is that the involvement of the steering committee has really been more to listen to presentations from the consultant and then fill out a form providing feedback on that presentation. That, in my mind, is utterly useless, and we have people who are involved in the steering committee because they are involved and invested in their community parks. We should have had them giving those presentations. What would you like to see? What would your neighbors like to see? More so than a consultant presenting to that steering committee and then asking for feedback on the back end. And the final thing that really struck me was the amount of dollars, and I believe it's over a 10-year spend plan, but the amount of dollars seemed very disproportionately geared toward District 1. I understand no dollars are in District 4. There are no parks there currently. I believe Betsy has addressed the North Fork adequately, and by the way, Betsy, very glad you are here and leading that charge. I don't understand how you can have, I believe the figures were 20-plus million in District 1 parks over a 10-year period versus 3 million in the other two districts. Doesn't seem proportionate at all in my mind, and I would like to see that addressed. And then the final comment was just something Ms. Garrett made earlier, a comment she made about building the reserve. I don't want to see us build the reserve at the cost of park improvements. We need to focus on the park improvements and spend that money where we told the people we would through the incorporation efforts. Thank you.
Anybody else? That's it? All right. Close the public comment section. Is there a motion?
Yeah.
I move that we close the public comment session.
Second?
Let's do it.
No, you don't have to move that.
Yeah, we don't have to move that.
I closed it.
Close it.
Motion for the.
I hereby close the public comments.
I move that we defer.
Mayor won't do it, I'll do it.
I move that we defer the Parks and Recreation Master Plan adoption to the September 9th council meeting.
I second.
Discussion, I'll just say, this is a proposed plan. We haven't even gotten our clause into it as a council. This is a proposal. It's not set in stone. So any consternation about figures of where funding is going is all that's just what the consultants came up with and in concert with the steering committee. So we're going to have a strategic funding plan for all the parks, proportional to their size and their usage, and whether they're a passive park or an active park. Not every park's going to get the same. Not every area is going to get the same amount of funding because there's different acreages in different areas and there are different uses. Some parks need maintenance or just cutting back brush. Some need new gymnasiums. Some need new playgrounds. Some don't have playgrounds. Some need new pavilions. So there's all different cost elements to all that. So once we get in and see what the needs are, then the funding will flow from what we see the needs are for everybody in Brookhaven, for all the parks and for all the acreage. So to expect that every park is going to be getting the same amount of money or that every area is going to be getting the same amount of money, it's just not realistic. It's going to be done according to what the needs are. And without regard to where the actual parkland lies. The parks don't know any boundaries. They don't know political boundaries. They just are there. Their land is there. There are 250-something acres of parks in Brookhaven, and I expect all of them to get attention.
Let me add one more comment that actually came out of the meeting that I had, citizen comment last night, that we need to print out all of these plans and put a copy, 1 or 2 copies in our lobby, 1 or 2 copies at the Brookhaven Library. And if there are some other places that we can think of that we can get these plans, that would be a very helpful thing to let people just come by and peruse these documents. They probably need to check them out because they're so big. But the more eyes on this, the better.
That's sort of the purpose for the meeting next week is, and I don't know if the consultants are going to be there or not, or if we can have them there. I mean, just to.
I can reach out to them.
There were actually some good questions last night at Bates's meeting that I wanted to be able to have citizens ask the consultants, because there may have been a good reason why they did something or didn't do something, and we just want to know what their reasons are, because they do have some expertise, right, obviously, and that's why they're the consultants. Right. So, but I would like to have at least one of them there so they can answer some of the questions and reassure folks or have pause. So. If that'd be helpful.
Okay, I'll be happy to reach out to them. I would like to make a comment, regarding a point that was just made as to the reserve fund versus expenditures to the park. Right. Before we can save, we have to take care of business and provide the level of services that you all have adopted and approved for this city.
Or else we won't be able to take care of our parks if we don't have a
correct.
sound financial
But I want to point this out because I know the community is very anxious to get moving on the parks. And within the last 2 weeks, we officially purchased the parks. Not all of them, but the majority of them. There's 3 still that are outstanding. We've been operating the parks since Labor Day weekend of 2013. And I remember sharing with you all when we talked about that, and we were bringing on the contractor to just perform maintenance, just to mow the grass, and I said, we are in triage mode.
Right. You
We,
did,
we took on all the parks that had neglect, and I'm not even going to say deferred maintenance, neglect. So there has been a tremendous amount of work just to, I would say, make the parks habitable. And you've heard me say this, and no disrespect to DeKalb County and you know, whatever their issues were, that's in the past, you all own the parks now. But I've even said that in one of our gymnasiums, you needed a tetanus shot to use the restroom in there. We've made tremendous strides in trying to make those facilities habitable. We opened the pools, and my goodness, everybody was excited about that, and then a pipe burst. Then the splash pad doesn't work.
And the
Then
pump's
then-
on a jack.
Right, and then the bathrooms are just in a deplorable state.
Dripping
So we have been trying to attend to those matters so that the parks could at least be habitable. But I'm very proud to tell you all that you have spent, you know, right now in what's budgeted in your 2014 budget, almost $3 million, half of what we anticipate for the 2014 host.
Yeah, and I want to address that one, in concert with that. I mean, Mr. Corey's comment about what we promised for incorporation was that we would spend 3 times more than what DeKalb County had spent. Well, we spend 6 times more.
Right.
So, you know, that's a shame on us for spending more than we promised.
Right, but I thought it was important to point that out. And you all are making an investment. I know that the Parks and Recreation Master Plan is still a work in progress, and I'm very proud of the community that they are engaged and are coming to the podium and are sending in comments. But you have to have a plan in order to move forward. You have to have a plan to afford your community predictability on what the improvements are going to be, but you have to budget the funds to that. And there has to be a reliance on this community as to what services, how the parks are going to be programmed, and how they're going to be managed. And most importantly, you know, how do you fully utilize those facilities that are on the ground right now? And I can tell you, those facilities that are out there right now are not enough. Just by evidence of the comments that have received, the over 1,000 people that responded to the surveys, we have a lot of work to do, but you should all be very, very proud because the majority of the host dollars have gone to your parks and are still yet to be programmed. Every one of my department heads are waiting for this meeting to end because Public Works has POs that are waiting to be processed. The Parks Director right now has over $500,000 of improvements going to various parks to get them habitable and to be able to be used. And the brochure that we held up so proudly that Mr. Kinsey put together in less than a month of being on board, we got to get those facilities habitable so people can get in there and they can have recreation and leisure services and they can get in there and have gymnastics or taekwondo or the basketball season and right on the heels. And I can tell you tomorrow morning, and I'll probably get the call on the way home from Brad Middlebrooks saying, hey boss, can I go ahead and push that bid through on the gym at Briarwood? I know it's coming, so you don't even need to call me. I talk to him most mornings at 6 a.m. and they're about bids on the parks.
Right.
And I just want to make that point because hooray for you, good for you that you're willing to commit these dollars because there are still lots of other improvements citywide that we could be using those host dollars for. You've set the priority as the parks, and I'm very proud to say that the majority of your host dollars have gone there.
Right. There's a lot of competing interests. I mean, you got folks, some folks want more staff for tree protection and erosion control. Some folks want more. I want my street paved. I want a sidewalk here. I want more police. I want this. So our job is to manage that. That's why we're elected, is to manage that.
Right.
And so
Right.
Parks is one of the top 2 or 3 issues that we form the city on.
And your city manager and your staff are very well aware of the priority you place on that.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. And I think our funding allocation shows the priority we place on it.
Absolutely. And one last point about that, because I think it's important. we don't save until we spend and meet the levels of service.
Right.
And all the almost $3 million going to parks is still affording us to put away $1.2 million in contingency.
Right.
That you now currently have $2 million in your reserve fund, and hopefully by the end of the year, another 500 to 600,000 added to that.
Right.
And let's fasten our seatbelts and look forward to 2015, because we want to grow that reserve.
Because what does the reserve allow us to do? It allows us to get bond rating.
Correct.
If you want parks improvements and you want a bond, you have to have that reserve.
Correct.
And so-
Right, or if there's a failure in one of your facilities in the parks, you'll have a savings account to go to and not ask your citizens to increase their tax contribution.
Right. Okay. All right, thank you. So the motion, that's the discussion on the motion, right? All right, so is there, all in favor of the deferral, signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right.
The next item, Mayor and Council, is an ordinance to consider and approve initiating text amendments to the readoption of Chapter 21 signs in its entirety and for other purposes.
Is there a short presentation on this? Very short presentation?
Very short.
I don't have anything to say, Ms. Cannon may,
Oh.
or excuse me,
Laura?
our city attorney, sorry.
As,
Emily, oh, I'm sorry.
Emily, sorry.
we're playing musical
Well,
chairs,
everybody's
sorry.
been moving, so-
As you know, we have a sign moratorium in effect right now, and part of the reason that we issued that moratorium was to give us time to readopt our zoning map and to study our sign ordinance in conjunction with our zoning map, because our sign ordinance does regulate signs based on zoning districts. And so to that extent, we're asking for permission tonight to go ahead and initiate the process to make the text amendments. We will have the proposed ordinance to the sign ordinance available online. It will go in front of the Planning Commission for a public hearing on September 18th, and then come before you for a public hearing before adoption. And it'll be a specially called meeting of the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on the sign ordinance? Okay, any discussion?
I just had a quick question.
Okay.
Will this will this include some fixes to our sign ordinance, like we've been talking about banners and real estate signs and some things like that?
Yes, we are, we are going to be fixing the banner section, and there's also going to be, it's going to be temporary signs, a provision for that, for real estate signs, whatever. It could be real estate, it could be whatever the speaker wants it to be, but that will all be included. They're called standard informational signs.
All right. Is there a
All right.
motion?
So I'll move that we accept ordinance 2014-08-03.
Is there a sec?
Consider it, want me to read it?
No, just the number's fine.
Okay, great.
Is there a second?
After 10 o'clock, the number's fine.
I'll second.
Any discussion? That's all we need is the number, right, clerk? Yes, okay. So we can stop doing that every time, by the way. We can stop reading off the whole thing. We can just use the numbers, all you need.
But she wants it.
She wants the whole thing?
Said it's better.
Consideration and approval of ordinance initiating text amendments and
All right.
readoption of Chapter 21 signs in its entirety for other purposes.
Chapter 27, not 21. You said 21.
It is 21.
It is 21. This one's 21.
27. Oh, God.
This is
Okay.
0803.
Take a vote.
I've seconded.
Discussion? All in favor signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. That one passes. Next is sign ordinance initiation. We don't have to do anything there. The A.
Zoning.
Ordinance 1489, consideration and approval of an ordinance initiating text amendments and readoption of Chapter 27
All right.
zoning in its entirety and for other purposes.
Is there public comment on that?
No.
Okay.
And once again, this is the same as before. We are just initiating the proposed ordinance. And this is just a fix because we're in our transition period and we've been adopting new ordinances for Chapter 14, the zoning map, and Chapter 21, and the comprehensive land use plan. There's just some references and some section numbers and some inconsistencies in the zoning ordinance that we need to fix.
I move that we approve ordinance 2014-08-04, consideration and approval of an ordinance initiating text amendments and readoption of Chapter 27 zoning.
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Is that it? Other business? Marie?
No other business.
Public comment? It's another public, we have some public comment?
Yes.
All right.
Dale Boone.
All right, Dale.
Mayor, City Council, how are you doing tonight?
Great.
We want to bring up again the issue of Beaufort Highway. Since our meeting from 2 weeks ago, the Oakwood Neighborhood Associations took up on itself to talk to the businesses in that area. Red Roof is completely in the dark. Most of the businesses that are Indian-owned are completely in the dark. Corporate for Red Roof Inn has taken over the hotel that had so much trouble and so many complaints. And corporate offices took them over and initiated the Red Roof Plus. The Red Roof Plus is the upscale of Red Roof, and Red Roof Plus is the only hotel of its kind by the Red Roof Corporation in the Atlanta metro area, with an average room rate of $139. We've listened to a lot of the complaints that we've heard from City Council into our area to take a listen to them. And it kind of disturbed us a little bit that with the plan for Beaufort Highway that a lot of the businesses didn't know. What we're trying to get at is we would love to keep the great businesses that are there. We would like to weed out the bad businesses that are there because Beaufort Highway is your bloodline. As I'm listening tonight, that we have all these ideas for all the parts and everything, that's going to take money, M-O-N-E-Y. To get that money, we need a tax business base. And we can't do it if we don't fix Beaufort Highway. And I don't want to sit here 20 years from now, because 20 years is a long time ago. Let me think for a second. 20 years, in 1994, there was no baseball. The Atlanta Braves were on strike. It was 2 years before the Olympics. That's a long, long time to fix a problem. That problem needs to be fixed now, if not all of it, at least half of it, to get it more functional. The more businesses we have come in, the more functional it can be. And the reason we're really harping on this is because, again, we've lost Ryan Steakhouse, we have lost Publix, which was in the Northeast Plaza. We've lost several major chains that used to be in that area, which was participated from our neighborhood and the Latino neighborhoods. Everybody saw everybody every Sunday eating at Ryan Steakhouse. But today it's turned to the point where nobody wants to go there. After meeting with the Public Safety Department, we're now assured that there's going to be some major changes there, and they've satisfied our concerns that they're going to rectify problems. So we're very much behind the Public Safety Department, very satisfied with them. But again, the comments that were made was Buford Boulevard. I would love to see Brookhaven Boulevard. And I also took the sweet time and asked our neighbors and stuff. And we come up with one solution also. A lot of people said we were crazy with the idea, but you know, the one thing that we've learned is you are the founding fathers of this city. All of us work together, but you are elected officials. I would not blink an eye if we didn't push for J. Matz Davis Boulevard as the change. And it's not a joke. You are our first mayor. Whether you won,
all in favor say aye.
Or whether you won or whether Sandy won, you are our first mayor. So I would really push for something like that. And identity is everything. So if we can change the complete identity, I see a plus for Beaufort Highway. Thanks.
Dale, and if you'd like your homeowners association and your folks to come meet, y'all need to come to Mondays with the mayor. I'd like to see you there to just hear about what y'all concerns about.
Well, you brought a couple of members tonight. We'll see after the meeting's adjourned.
Okay, but I'd like to do it on a Monday too. Okay. At some point in the next couple of weeks.
Also, get all those businesses on Beaufort Highway connected with the Brookhaven Chamber
of Commerce.
Yeah.
So they can speak with a unified voice.
I'm sorry to touch base again. What another thing that disturbed me was they told me that they left the Brookhaven Chamber of Commerce. That's what really caught my attention too. So please understand that I'm bringing this to you. And one more thing I forgot to stand that we all need to know. As I spoke with these businesses, they said that they have been visited by a man person who is asking these businesses to DNX from the city. So that's kind of disturbed to understand that somebody's going around to the businesses in our neighborhoods to get them in such a thing. So just bringing that to your attention.
We're aware of that. The executive director of the chamber, the new one, is right there. President or the executive director, one of the two.
Marie, just to clarify, aren't we restricted what we can do with the name of the road on Beaufort Highway because it's a state highway?
We can petition the
Always,
state.
but yes.
We can always petition?
Yes. Sounds like there's a grassroots movement already.
I think for some reason now the mayor's really behind this.
Right. Okay. I suggested renaming Beaufort Highway a long time ago, and a law forum, Pleasant Parkway or something like that. And so the renaming of it is something I know we're going to look at some point. We want to get some improvements done first, though. Next, any more public comments?
Terrell Karstens.
Okay.
I'll be quick. Excuse me, Terrell Karstens, 2444 Oostenaula Drive, speaking as a private citizen only. I wanted to bring up the consideration and approval of the 2014 mid-year budget adjustments in the consent agenda. I appreciate Marie's position and her explanation of it, but I just think it's something, since we did it, I like the way we did it last year. I think it's important as a new city that we do it that way for a little time or a longer time period. It will build community confidence and trust. It's an open disclosure. Getting a document today was a little short notice, but I appreciate Bates giving me a copy of it and stuff. But I just want you to consider that I think the mid-year budget should be treated as a public, not maybe a public hearing, but at least open to the public and put out in the agenda package or something where we at least have some time to review it and keep it as something that is more of a transparency issue for you all, not as an issue, but as part of your campaign promises. It's something that would sure take the edge off of some of the stuff. Bates, you see the emails. Others of you see, I'm sure you see some of the crazy emails and stuff, but it would help unite, I think. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. We'll close the public comment. All right. And mayor's comments. Just excited about that meeting next week with the parks folks. The public and the steering committee, and if we can get one of the consultants there, I'd like to see some folks. Maybe we can adopt the parks plan on the 9th if we get some good feedback that gets put in, instead of deferring it.
I did have one comment that I'd just like to thank Mike Elliott and Friends of Brookhaven Park for the great work they did in getting saving some trees. They were on Hermance Drive in a redevelopment that is proposed. Oglethorpe allowed them to take those trees, transplant them in Brookhaven Park at no cost to the taxpayers. And that saved either 21 or 22 great trees. So thank them for their efforts. Good job.
Thank you.
I have one. Just a quick announcement that you know we raised $75,000 at the police outing for educational purposes. Well, that now is moving into reality, and the application formats have been sent to the chief, and they're being circulated to the police officers, and we're looking for our first handful of submissions before the end of September.
Great. Thank you. Thank you to Stan Sands for putting that together.
Yeah, he did a great job.
All right.
He and Jed.
Yeah. Any other? Okay. All right. Is there a motion for executive session? For litigation. You forgot about that, didn't you?
I move that we go into executive session to discuss litigation.
I second it, but you may want to inform the public about what we're going to do. We'll end this meeting after.
Yeah, we're not going to come back and
executive
hoodwink you and do a whole new, ordinance allowing golf carts everywhere.
Means there's really.
Is there a second? Do we do a second on that?
Yeah.
Any discussion? All in favor of executive session, signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Need some drinks. Okay.
Hello. Susan, how do I log?
Oh, we're canceling it, canceling the executive session. Scott's not available. Joe? Come on, sit down. Hold on a second, we're still in executive session, so 1 second.
I'm here.
We need another motion to close it.
I move that we adjourn the executive session.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor of adjourning executive session, signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hey, I'm sorry, folks, we had a change of plans, so is there a motion for adjournment?
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor of adjournment, signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We're adjourned. Dale.
Oh, certainly.
Log out.
She's not.